Bristol International Raceway in the northeastern portion of the volunteer state. A 1/2 mile racetrack with turns banked at 36 degrees, the Valleydale 500 for Grand National cars. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Bob Jenkins, along with former Grand National champion Benny Parsons. Well, last week, heavy rain forced postponement of this event, but now we're ready to set for the 500 laps, 266 miles in this event. Last week, 82 degrees. This week, 52 degrees and 30-mile-an-hour winds. Benny, how is it going to affect the drivers and the cars?
This was not a good situation for the drivers. Last week, it was warm. The racetrack was going to get slippery. The drivers were going to have to back off a little bit early getting in the turns, therefore saving some of the physical exertion they'd have to put forth. Bristol is the hardest physical racetrack that we run. Going in these turns at 125, 130 miles an hour, it literally tries to throw you out the right door. Last week, we'd had the advantage of backing off a car length or two earlier. Today, the racetrack is very cool. These drivers are going to have to pour it down in the corner, and it's going to be very hard on them physically. And there was heavy rain here last night, so the rubber has been washed away. Down to Jack Arute now, one of our two pit announcers, for a look at turn number 4.
We're here in the turn 4 area of the racetrack, and the whole facility has been covered this year with a top coat of sealer. Unfortunately, right in the middle of the groove where we are, the heat from the tires in practice yesterday has begun to peel up that top coat and expose the racetrack itself. Now, this top coat that's being pulled up has made it very rough in here, and it could create problems for the cars, making them very unsettled as they come out of the turn. A lot of the top team crew chiefs have been over to inspect this area this morning, and they're faced with a choice, a critical one. If they run the normal standard low gear for this area, they'll run right through here and upset the cars. Some of the top crew chiefs, however, are considering running a higher gear to go outside of this area. If they do so, it could spell, well, success for them and failure for others. We won't know till later. Let's go down now to Larry Newber.
The pole setter for today's race is the now familiar green number 33 of Harry Gant. And Harry, if the fourth turn is a factor today, it might work to your advantage, not disadvantage. You like to run up there high, don't you?
Well, normally I do. You know, the car seems to be working well enough that we can run high, and it will avoid the problem we're going to encounter later on today in that fourth turn. The track's flaking up a little.
Now, everybody's had about 6 days to rethink their positions in terms of setup. Gives you a lot of time to go home and make a lot of decision changes, doesn't it?
Yeah, we had to leave our car here. It was impounded because they had to check the engine after qualifying, and we didn't really change anything on it. A lot of cars that did ran a little better yesterday in practice, so it's going to be a pretty tough field today. I don't think the track's going to really change that much. Of course, the cool conditions here is going to be better for drivers, but the track conditions will still be probably as same as it would have been last week.
Well, Harry, of course, will be the pole setter for today's race, but for tomorrow, here's the pole setter.
Bobby Allison will be outside on row number 1, but Darrell Waltrip, who has wins in 7 of the last 8 races here, will start 9th. So we're set now for the Valleydale 500 from Bristol, Tennessee. Back at the Valleydale 500 from Bristol International Raceway, and the field begins to move out for a couple of warm-up laps before we get the green flag. Let's take a look more closely at this racetrack. It is 0.533 miles in length. The front stretch and the back stretch are each 1,100 feet in length. The stretches are 60 feet wide, and there is 35-degree banking in the turns. The cars begin to move down the back stretch now behind the pace car. The front row, of course, Harry Gant and Bobby Allison. And let's take a look now at the 30-car starting lineup for today's Grand National race. On the pole with a new track record of 112.778 miles an hour in the Kmart Skull Bandit Chevrolet, Harry Gant from Taylorsville, North Carolina. Outside from Hueytown, Alabama, car number 22, the Miller American Buick, Bobby Allison. In row number 2, car number 12, the driver from Hueytown, Alabama, Neil Bonnet, the Budweiser Chevrolet. Outside of row number 2 in the Piedmont Airlines Chevrolet, car number 44, Terry Labonte from Corpus Christi, Texas. In row number 3 from Jackson, Mississippi, driving car number 75, the Nationwide Auto Parts Pontiac Lake Speed. And outside of row number 3, Ricky Rudd from Chesapeake, Virginia, in the number 15 Motorcraft Camelot Ford. In the 4th row, Ron Bouchard from Fitchburg, Massachusetts, in the number 47 Valvoline Buick. And outside of row number 4 from Dawsonville, Georgia, in the Coors Ford, car number 9, Bill Elliott. In the 5th row, Darrell Waltrip from Franklin, Tennessee, car number 11. Then Jeff Bodine in car number 5, the Levi Garrett Chevrolet. The 6th row, Kyle Petty in car number 7 and Dale Earnhardt in number 3. In the 7th row, Tim Richmond in 27 and Joe Ruttman in number 4. The 8th row, Richard Petty in car 43 and Ken Schrader in 90. The 9th row has Rusty Wallace in car number 2 and Buddy Baker in 88. The 10th row, Phil Parsons in 17 and 71, Dave Marcus. In the 11th row, Bobby Helen in car 8 and Eddie Birchwale in number 6. The 12th row, Clark Dwyer in 64 and Sterling Marlin in 95. Row number 13, Jimmy Means in 52 and Phil Good in 67. The 14th row, Mike Potter in 68 and Ronnie Thomas in 41. And in the 15th row, J.D. McDuffie, car number 70, and Don Hume in car number 49. We have 2 radio hookups, one with Tim Richmond. Here's Benny Parsons.
Tim Richmond, this is Benny Parsons in ESPN. Do you read?
Roger, Benny, we have you. We're just now going into turn 3 out of here.
Does the racetrack look like it's going to be pretty good today?
Yeah, it looks real good, Benny. It's voiced some of the rubber off, which won't be all that good, but it's also taken a lot of the oil and dirt that was put on it yesterday. So the track does look well, and you'll probably see the race get a little faster here in the next 30 laps. After 30 laps, probably get a little faster.
We'll be checking with you later on today. Thank you, Tim Richmond.
Thank you, Benny.
Second radio hookup is with the 10th place starter, Jeff Bodine. Bob Jenkins in the ESPN booth. Jeff, can you read?
We hear you, Bob.
All right, you're just a few feet actually away from the green flag. What do you do when it drops? Sit back or do you charge toward the front?
Well, we hope everything settles down here pretty quick, and we're just going to try to sit back and set a good pace and stay with everybody.
Jeff, good luck to you. We'll be talking with you throughout the race.
Okay.
We watch the field as it enters turn number 4 now. The pace car is going to the low side of the racetrack and pulling into the pit area. The pace begins to quicken now as the Valleydale 500 is underway. The 30 cars stream through turns number 1 and 2 abreast, and Bill Elliott has dropped back slightly as up front it is Harry Gant and Bobby Allison leading the way toward lap number 1. Gant continues to lead down the backstretch as the field begins to get strung out. They're running single file now through these 35 degrees of banking. Harry Gant and Bobby Allison up front, followed by Neil Bonnet, then Terry Labonte, Lake Speed, Ron Bouchard, Ricky Rudd, and Bill Elliott. Elliott with a not too good a start. He did lose a couple of positions on the start, but now is hanging up there in 8th position. Lap number 3 is about to be complete. They continue to run in the same order.
Dale Earnhardt looks like he's on the move back in the back. Harry Gant, Bobby Allison is really hanging. This is one of the better qualifying efforts for Bobby Allison in the last couple of years. Started outside pole, so.
There is Dale Earnhardt running right behind Jeff Bodine, and Earnhardt was taking the high line last lap around, but now he's settled in behind Jeff Bodine, running ahead of Kyle Petty out there on the racetrack. Dale Earnhardt, who started in 12th position in the Wrangler Chevrolet car number 3. There you can see him using a slightly higher line than most of the other drivers.
He tried to bring the car down off of the 4th corner and get underneath Jeff Bodine that time, but it didn't work.
He is running in 11th position. Jeff Bodine in car number 5 is running in 10th spot. They battle through turns number 3 and 4. There's the leader. It continues to be Harry Gant and Bobby Allison following very closely. Then there are 6 or 7 or 8 car lengths before we get back to the 3rd place competitor. That is Neil Bonnet. Darrell Waltrip begins to move as he also has chosen to use a slightly higher line. There he goes to the outside of Ricky Rudd and Ron Bouchard, and you can see the tire, the right rear tire smoking on the Waltrip car as he begins to move up, and Lake Speed is sideways in turn number 3. And this is going to be a multi-car accident. At least 3 cars are involved. Terry Labonte spins down the front stretch as Lake Speed, Darrell Waltrip, and Ron Bouchard have all suffered body damage, and Lake Speed is beginning now to move away in turn number 4. Darrell Waltrip has moved into the pit area, and everybody else is out on the racetrack, but a lot of debris down there in turn number 4. And it's going to be interesting to see if we lose any cars because of this accident. Darrell Waltrip's left front end is damaged rather badly. You can see the damage there as the crew begins to go to the car and to try to straighten the body damage out. And Bill Elliott is also in the pits, as is Terry Labonte and Ron Bouchard. Here's Jack Arute.
Well, the damage on Darrell Waltrip's Budweiser Chevrolet is extensive. The crew is going to the front of the car first, and they're trying to pry out a flat tire on the left side, and all of the fender wells are caved in. Meanwhile, Junior Johnson is working vigorously on the backside. He's got that straightened away, but it is a tough break, and I'm going to see if I can step in and get a quick word from Darrell Waltrip. Darrell, what happened?
I don't know, Jackie. Lake speed, somebody hit him, got him crossed up, and I couldn't see for the smoke.
Well, that's the word here from Darrell Waltrip's pit, and they're continuing to work furiously, but the problem is going to be they're going to lose precious laps, and it could be tout fini for another victory for the Waltrip team.
Well, he's not the only one that suffered a lot of body damage. The Ron Bouchard car is also heavily damaged in the front end. So with 9 laps completed, we have our first yellow of the afternoon. And the start of today's NASCAR Valleydale 500 has been brought to you by Coney, makers of shock absorbers and suspension kits for all performance cars. Coney, proven superior. We'll be back with more from the Valleydale 500 from Bristol Raceway in just a moment. Back at Bristol, where we are under yellow because of an accident up in turn number 4, and this is what happened as Lake Speed is sideways in turn 3. And you can see him clip Terry Labonte, and there is no place for Ron Bouchard or Darrell Waltrip to go. And Bill Elliott was also involved in that, Benny, and I don't know who he hit, but he is still in the pit area, and they have the hood up in that car.
I guess that he ran in the back of someone when they started slowing down for the accident. You know, and it looked like Lake Speed was going to come down the racetrack, that Darrell Waltrip and Ron Bouchard were both going to get by on the outside, but he did not. I found out, someone told me, one of our spotters told me that Bill Elliott hit Ron Bouchard. Jackie Arute is down with Bill Elliott. Jackie?
And the window net is still up on the Coors Thunderbird, but I can get a word with Bill Elliott. Bill, you're replacing a radiator. Do you know who you hit?
I don't know, hit somebody in the back. The Lake Speed spun out, and I don't know what happened from then.
So this kind of cut you out of the chance of winning the race. Now do you just stroke it for the rest of the day?
I couldn't hear a word you said.
Well, it's obvious that the race has gone back to green. Let's go upstairs.
Indeed it has, and Harry Gant continues to lead. Bobby Allison running second, and Neil Bonnet is third, with Tim Richmond now in 4th position. 15 laps, and 6 cars lost laps because of that accident up there in turn number 3, namely Darrell Waltrip, also Dale Earnhardt, Lake Speed, and I believe Bill Elliott, of course, who is still in the pits, also lost a lap because of the accident.
I'm surprised with the way Bobby Allison is running today, Bob. He has really got the thing hooked up, and looks like Harry Gant did a good job to jump a moment ago on the restart, but Bobby Allison is right behind him.
I stand corrected. Dale Earnhardt did not lose a lap on that particular yellow flag. He is running in 6th position. But Darrell Waltrip has lost at least 3 laps, and Lake Speed has lost at least 1, and Bill Elliott is still in the pit area. As you heard him tell Jackie Arute, they are changing a radiator on that car. So it's basically a 2-car race at this point. Harry Gant and Bobby Allison showing the way. Good race also back in 3rd position, as Neil Bonnet and Tim Richmond are running right together on the racetrack, as are Harry Gant and Bobby Allison. Harry Gant currently running in 7th position in the point standings for the Grand National Division. As we go back and check on that battle for 3rd and 4th place, there it is, Neil Bonnet and Tim Richmond.
It looks like that Neil Bonnet has been holding up Tim Richmond for the last few laps, because in the corner Richmond's been going up and bumping him. As we can see, as they come off turn 4, Bob, he's right on his bumper, and I think that Richmond could run faster if he were in front, but Neil Bonnet's in front. He's going to stay there. Now Earnhardt is done alongside Richmond.
And as we watch the action on the racetrack, Bill Elliott pulls out of the pits and gets back out there on the racetrack, but obviously his chances of winning this race are virtually gone. Allison keeping a close watch on Harry Gant now. Bobby moves up on the racetrack to see if he can pass Harry Gant, but cannot do so. But now Allison moves to the outside in turn number 3, and they're side by side as they come through the 4th turn, and Bobby Allison is going to take the lead on lap number 21. Allison passes Gant for the lead. Here's Larry Nuber.
A lot of disappointment in the Lake Speed pit on 2 separate occasions, Bob and Benny. He just barely did not make it out while they were doing repairs under the caution flag. He lost 2 laps and they didn't expect it. Also the new tire rule. Terry Labonte in number 34 had a flat tire under the yellow flag, so he had to make 1 extra pit stop also.
All right, Bobby Allison leading now. Terry Labonte is going to be making another pit stop, and Ron Bouchard running very slowly on the racetrack. That car damaged in the incident up in turn number 3. Bobby Allison begins to lap some of the slower cars, passing the Chrysler product that's owned by Arrington Racing and driven this weekend by Phil Good from Martinsville, Virginia.
That was a great move by Bobby Allison a moment ago, Bob, to pass Harry going in the 3rd corner on the outside. That shows just how well Bobby Allison is working right now, and he's driving away.
And the race for 3rd position now involves Dale Earnhardt and Neil Bonnet, and Earnhardt sneaks to the inside, and so does Tim Richmond. So both of those drivers pass Neil Bonnet.
Oh, Neil Bonnet didn't want to play with that crowd, I tell you that.
We will notice throughout the afternoon, Benny, and we'll comment on this here in the early stages of the race. We will notice that smoke comes from the right rear tire of some of the cars. Is that necessarily an indication that they're not handling right?
No, I don't think so. I think they're going into turns so hard, and the tires are just sliding across the racetrack slightly enough to make the tires smoke. The new sealer is letting the cars go through the turns much faster, and therefore we're just sliding a little bit, and that's where the smoke's coming from. I don't think it's going to hurt anything. Hopefully they aren't going to have any tire trouble today.
Dale Earnhardt now begins to move on 2nd place, Harry Gant. There is Gant, there is Earnhardt, and right behind Earnhardt is Tim Richmond. And we have been notified that Terry Labonte has been penalized 2 laps because he changed 3 tires under the caution. And of course, the new rule from NASCAR this year is that when there is a caution on the racetrack, you can only change 2 tires. Terry changed 3, as Larry Nuber indicated a little bit earlier, so he has been penalized 2 laps.
Dale Earnhardt went right by Harry Gant down in the 1st and 2nd corner. We see Tim Richmond going by him as well. Harry is having to go up the racetrack down in turns 1 and 2. Dale Earnhardt and Tim Richmond staying on the bottom of the racetrack have taken 2nd and 3rd.
So Dale Earnhardt, who started this race in 12th position, has moved up to 2nd spot already, and looking very fast in that Wrangler Chevrolet. Dale Earnhardt from Kannapolis, North Carolina. There's the battle for 3rd place involving Harry Gant and Tim Richmond. It's been a good ride so far in the early stages of the race for Tim Richmond, who now moves to the inside and passes Harry Gant and goes into 3rd. And now Neil Bonnet also to the inside of the racetrack underneath Harry Gant, and he's in 4th spot. Harry drops from 1st to 5th. And let's go down to Jackie Arute, who is with Dale Inman.
Dale Inman, what was the problem? You've got 2 lap penalties from NASCAR.
Well, we spun, Jackie, and we changed right side tires. We had a left side down. And the same thing happened to us in Atlanta. We had to run 2 laps. So when we come and change tires, we lost 2 laps under the caution changing tires.
Does that make you in favor or against the new tire?
Well, I certainly don't like it right now.
That's the word here. Back up to the tower.
Well, it's a rule that everybody has to get along with, and sometimes it works to your advantage and sometimes it works to your disadvantage.
It certainly hasn't worked for Terry Labonte in the last couple of races, that's for sure. Last in Atlanta, he did not stop and change the tire and stopped on the green. He lost 2 laps. Today they just chose to go ahead and take the 2-lap penalty and start back the race.
And we have a problem up in turn number 3. Several cars are involved in this one. Joe Ruttman hits the wall very hard in the rear end. Also involved Jeff Bodine, Neil Bonnet, Tim Richmond, Harry Gant, and I believe also that's Joe Ruttman who's pulling away. So there are the cars of Tim Richmond and Neil Bonnet that are stalled down at turn number 4. And there is Joe Ruttman coming into the pits, and Joe is running very well. A lot of sheet metal damaged here. Harry Gant's car is also badly damaged.
I don't know. I think Joe Ruttman should stop that car because
there's a lot of smoke pouring from it. It is coming, looks like, from the cockpit of the race car, too.
It really does. I think it's tire smoke, but there's no way of really being sure.
Well, he's staying out there and completing another lap. There's Neil Bonnet's stalled car down in turn number 4, and Tim Richmond is also stalled down there. So some excitement here in the first 36 laps of this race, as we've had two rather serious crashes that have eliminated the chances of winning of several top contenders. Back with more of the Valleydale 500 from Bristol in a moment. 40 out of 500 laps completed here at Bristol, and Bobby Allison is the leader with Dale Earnhardt running second. Sterling Marlin is third, Ken Schrader fourth, and Rusty Wallace running in fifth position. In sixth spot, we have Dave Marcus. Seventh is Buddy Baker. Eighth, Ricky Rudd. Ninth is Richard Petty, and in 10th position is Kyle Petty unofficially. Richard Petty, by the way, car number 43, the familiar STP Pontiac, is making his 400th Grand National start today. There is Harry Gant's car in the pit area. The crew on the right side of it trying to straighten out the sheet metal and get the metal away from the tires. But Harry suffered some rather extensive side damage to that race car in turn number 3.
I think he not only has sheet metal damage, I think he's got some pretty serious chassis damage because he has hit something awfully hard.
Well, let's go down to Jack Arute, who's with Neil Bonnet, and it isn't looking real good for Neil at this point, is it, Jack?
Indeed it's not right now, Bob, but Neil, we understand first of all what happened.
Well, Tim Richmond blew a motor right directly in front of me, and oil just covered my car up and I just spun around and got in the wall.
But you're also very upset about something else.
Well, I had a wreck at Richmond, Virginia, and they never sent an ambulance out there, and I about knocked the fence down right now, and they ain't sent anybody out there yet. It's about time they start taking care of that.
Well, you're okay, though.
Well, I'm fixing to go find out. I rung my bell pretty good.
Well, that's the word on Neil Bonnet. Mighty upset after hitting the wall.
Well, Joe Ruttman also had a very hard encounter with the wall. That car backed in, and Joe's still out there, I believe.
No, he's pulled behind the wall.
He has indeed, and they're working on the rear end of that car, but he sure took a shot.
He really did, and that's how hard Harry Gant and Neil Bonnet hit the fence, Bob, because they hit with the side of the car, so therefore it didn't cave it in. But Joe Ruttman backed that Folgers machine in the fence, and it just folded right up.
All right, we have 13 cars that are on the lead lap, and let's go down now to Larry Newber, who's with Ron Bouchard.
Well, this is Ron Bouchard, who came into this race with a lot of high hopes. Ron, practice was very good to you this week, wasn't it?
Well, we really look forward to this race. You know, the car was really running well, and we just was really a victim of circumstance down here. I don't know what Terry did or what he was thinking of, but he ran into the back of the 75 and turned him sideways, and we were all stuck with no place to go, and somebody hit me in the back and drove me into it, and it just tore my car all up.
Did it appear as though that Lake simply lost control first? This is the first yellow flag, of course, that we're talking about.
Well, they look like Terry went down there and just kind of run him in the back end and turned him sideways, and you know, it was a whole bunch of us right there with no place to go.
Well, one of the principals involved in this second yellow flag was Joe Ruttman, and Jack Arute is with him now.
Joe Ruttman is starting to look like Apocalypse Now out there. What happened to you?
Well, Jackie, it appeared that the 27 car lost an engine. And when these cars get into any type of water or oil, you just totally lose control. And it occurred to me that Neil and you know, there was 3 of us there got involved, and I was hopefully that we didn't you know, get connected solidly enough to anyone to put us out. But Tony Glover, the crew chief, just told me a moment ago that it appeared there's way too much damage to try to fix on the car. So we'll just have to wait till Darlington to give our Folgers car another run. But we was having a lot of fun and just sitting there racing just to see what we could do later on in the race. And it's a shame that so much action had to start so early.
When you see that much action so early, should we expect a rash of yellow cautions and a lot of crashes in this race today, or is this just a fluke?
I would say this, Jackie, would be a fluke. I would think that the race will settle down. You might see the race go 150, 200 laps with no cautions, and I surmise that's what's going to take place. It's odd that an engine would go that quick. You know, sometimes it's cold weather, and these fellows fire these motors up and you turn them 8,000, and maybe that's what happened to the engine. It appeared to me that he lost something out of the bottom of the motor, and it was pretty dramatic. The amount of oil and trash was coming out on the track, so I knew there was going to be a good ride for the old Folgers car, but we just hung on, and they're built pretty good, so we come through her safe.
Well, there'll be another day for the Folgers team and Joe Ruttman, but not today at Bristol.
Tough luck for Joe, who was doing well. There is Harry Gant's car. They have pulled it behind the wall as they continue to try to straighten it out and get it back in the race. We have completed 45 laps. Back with more after these messages. The green flag is about to come out once again as we go back to racing, but it has been a very interesting first 46 laps of this race. Green back out. Bobby Allison is in front. Dale Earnhardt running in second spot as the field goes back to racing.
Jackie Root asked a moment ago if there's going to be a lot of caution flags today. There aren't going to be enough cars left out to cause caution flags if we keep going like this.
What does all this mean? We have Neil Bonnet out of the race. We have Joe Ruttman out of the race. We have Harry Gant out of the race. We have Bouchard, and we also have Tim Richmond. What does it mean? Anything?
Well, it means that some of the competition has gone away, and not only have we lost those cars completely, we've got Bill Elliott, Darrell Waltrip, Terry Labonte, who are laps down, and theoretically do not have a chance to win. Trouble on the front straightaway.
J.D. McDuffie spins and hits the wall in the front stretch. That car making contact with the inside wall, and we have another yellow flag. That's the third of the afternoon. McDuffie didn't hit the wall very hard, but he did hit it a couple of times, and there is body damage to that car also. So we're going to have our third yellow of the afternoon.
Well, I guess that was a one-car accident, so we'd only have to have one car to have a caution flag.
19 laps so far have been run under the yellow. Harry Gant work continues. Larry Newber with an update on that situation.
Well, Bob, Harry has some earplugs in. He has a very difficult time hearing us down here. A lot of noise here at Bristol, but Harry, we got yet another yellow flag. What's wrong with your car, however?
Well, I got in the oil when the 27 car blowed, and I hit Neil in the wall in 27 too, and so it broke the A-frame up here so bad that you wouldn't be able to drive it. Even though we kept working and got the tires off without losing a lap, it wouldn't be safe to drive it, so he's going to have to change it.
Harry, what about all these yellow flags? Is this a phenomenon of something wrong with the racetrack? Is everybody trying too hard, or is this simply just luck of the draw?
Well, there's a lot of cars, smoking out there early, and motor blows on this sealer. It's real slick, and nothing you could really do.
And when you're going for points, you got to fix it, don't you? No matter how hard the work is.
Yeah, we got to fix it, and try to hope that we can get back out without losing too many laps, and hopefully can still finish pretty good.
Well, tough luck today for one of Benny Parsons' teammates, Bob.
All right, Larry, and while we have the time here, while the cars are still under reduced speed, we bring back by popular demand a closer look at the 35-degree banking here at Bristol.
In our years of covering auto races for ESPN, we have visited many high-bank paved racetracks. It all began back in 1979 at the Winchester Speedway in Winchester, Indiana, banked, depending upon who you ask, 33, 34, 35 degrees. Used to be a high-banked racetrack in Fort Wayne, Indiana. And in the beginning, believe it or not, the Nashville Speedway had banks just about that high. Now, in support of our broadcast, we've had many dramatic demonstrations as to the drama associated with just standing on a high-bank paved racetrack. There was the time in Talladega, Alabama, when I was suspended in a bucket about 3 or maybe 4 stories above the first and second corners. And another time in Winchester, I was tethered on the end of the rope and tried laboriously to walk up the banking. But here today, we have perhaps the most dramatic of those demonstrations as to what it's like being on a high-bank paved racetrack. This is the Bristol Raceway, and the banks here are 35 degrees. The drivers will tell you that the G-forces are just tremendous, and even staying on the banks, just staying on the banks, is difficult unless you're at speed. Now, to prove this, I have a couple of my able-bodied assistants here, Bob Jenkins and Jack Arute, and watch how easy this thing takes off down the banking.
Well, we never get tired of seeing this, Benny. This worked out just perfect for us. We thought maybe the car would scoot on its side down the banking, but it did just what we wanted it to.
That's beautiful. And, that's from a dead stop. Just imagine what he would do at 100 miles an hour if it started rolling.
Exactly right. So the cars are being lined up in their 2 abreast formation for a restart next time around. But before we get the green, let's go down to the pit area. Here's Jack Arute again.
It could be that Junior Johnson was a prophet, because as you see in his pits, he has literally emptied his truck and put all of the parts and pieces right down here. Now, you know that both cars have already had a problem on his team, but just several seconds ago, the number 47 car of Ron Bouchard came to this pile of parts and cannibalized the rear end in order to get some pieces that they need to get Ron Bouchard back. This could be very important right here in Junior Johnson's pit. If we continue to have yellow fever, it could become the auto parts house for Winston Cup Grand Nationals.
Well, let's hope this yellow fever is eradicated here in the next few laps. We've had enough crashes and bashes for the first 54 laps of this race. Field comes off of turn number 4, and the green flag comes out once again. Bobby Allison continues to set the pace as they move down the backstretch. Dale Earnhardt running in second spot. The third car in line is Terry Labonte, but he is down a few laps, as is Darrell Waltrip, the fourth car in the procession as they come down the backstretch.
Darrell Waltrip has some heavy damage to that automobile, Bob, but it doesn't look like it's affecting how the car is running. It looks like he's running very well. Wouldn't it be odd if he were to win this race today?
Well, it really would, and I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility at all. We do have 12 cars on the lead lap, and we haven't finished even a fifth of this race yet, and a lot of things can happen. So Waltrip and several other of those drivers who were involved in the initial accident with Lake Speed and Ron Bouchard are certainly not out of the race. Larry Nuber once again in the pit area.
Is this going to be a day of surprises? Because of all the yellow flags, there is third, fourth, and fifth. These guys are not even pitted on the front stretch. Running right now in third place is Sterling Marlin. They just changed the scoreboard. Rusty Wallace is up there, as is Ken Schrader. They weren't even expected to run in the top 10. As I mentioned, they've been pitted on the backstretch, but right now they're in the top 5 positions.
Well, that's definitely a good point. It could be a surprise winner here at Bristol this afternoon in the Valleydale 500. But for right now, Bobby Allison and Dale Earnhardt are running up front. Bobby Allison, 47 years old, from Hueytown, Alabama. Finished 19th in this race last year and finished second in the second race of 1984 here at Bristol. So it's a racetrack that he likes, and he has certainly been the dominant force in the race to this point.
Last spring for this very race, the Valleydale 500, Bobby Allison was the dominant force in that race. After the race was over, he had a trick gear or a trick rear end in the car, and everyone felt like that's why he was such a dominant force. He doesn't have it now, but yet he's still a dominant force. So maybe there was something there other than the rear end last spring.
Race for third and fourth position involves number 95 Sterling Marlin from Columbia, Tennessee. Right behind him is Rusty Wallace, last year's Rookie of the Year on the Grand National Circuit. And right behind Rusty Wallace is the number 5 Chevrolet of Jeff Bodine from Pleasant Garden, North Carolina, originally from upstate New York.
Well, Jeff Bodine is going to have to show a lot of patience right now, and Rusty Wallace is on the board. He's third place. He wants to impress these people. He's going to try to keep Rusty Wallace and Jeff Bodine back as long as he can. They're a little faster than he is right now, but yet they can't try to muscle their way by, or we're going to have accidents just like we had a moment ago.
And most of the cars here running together have not made a pit stop. Now, Jeff Bodine has stopped, but Rusty Wallace has not, and Sterling Marlin has not. Bodine, as you can see, was able to pass Rusty Wallace there on the backstretch. So he moves up now into fourth position as Marlin continues to hold third spot in that red number 95 McCraig Racing Chevrolet. A little bit of smoke from the right rear tire of Rusty Wallace in that Alugard Spectrum Furniture Pontiac. Rusty, of course, from St. Louis, Missouri. .67 laps completed. Jeff Bodine looks to the inside of Sterling Marlin down the backstretch. Can't move into third position, however, as Marlin continues to hold that spot. Marlin, of course, is second-generation driver. And now Bodine moves to the inside, coming off the banking in turn number 2, but still Jeff cannot make the pass. But but some good racing going out there on the racetrack. Well, the most, or one of the 3 yellow flags that we have had over the Speedway involved an accident which was caused when Tim Richmond's car blew a motor and dumped some oil. And Jack Arute is with Tim.
Well, you know, we had an in-car radio with Tim Richmond, and we never got a chance to use it, Tim. First of all, the blown engine. You had your hands full out there for a minute, didn't you?
Well, we did, but we didn't know why we had our hands full. Just going into 3, the car, like, locked the rear end up and turned it around backwards before we ever got into the corner. So, you know, finally when we got it back here in the pits, we was able to see it kick the rod out of the side of the block, and that's what put all the oil into the tires and turned the car around. But before that, we didn't know why it happened. We thought maybe the rear end locked up or whatever. But it did blow up the engine, kick the rod out.
Now, this place is a little different than a super speedway. We're mired in here till the end of the race. Normally, you could get in your van and go back up to Lake Norman. What does a race driver do for about 450 laps? Watch the competition?
Well, for one thing, you don't sleep in this stuff unless noise puts you to sleep.
We've got a problem. We've got a problem. We've got to spin. We're going back up to the tower.
Okay, it's in turn number 2, Jackie, and it involves rookie Eddie Birschwale from San Antonio, Texas. The car spun in turn number 2 and kicked up a lot of smoke, but he continued on the racetrack, so we have no yellow flag over the track right now. Birschwale will undoubtedly be coming in for a pit stop. In fact, I think the tire on the right front of the car may be rubbing against the fender work.
It was, Bobby. It went by, it was rubbing. Evidently, there was some contact up in the corner with another car. He's knocked the fender in on the tire. There is caution on the racetrack, caution on the Speedway.
Now we do bring out the caution. Birschwale had moved into his pit area, which is on the backstretch. There are pits both on the front straightaway and on the backstretch. He had moved into the pit area, but the yellow now comes out and the race back to the yellow flags finish line. And 75 laps now are completed with our 4th yellow of the afternoon. There may be some oil over there in turn number 2. So pit stops being made, and while we're under yellow, we will have more and return after these messages. Bob Jenkins, Benny Parsons, Larry Nuber, and Jack Arute back at the Valleydale 500 at Bristol International Raceway in Tennessee. We are under caution once again with 79 laps completed. Let's go down to the pit area. Here's Larry.
Well, Bob, with all the caution flags, Dale Earnhardt's strategy, who's running second right now, has changed a little bit. Whereas he may have had to race as flat out as fast as he could all day long. Now maybe he can wait just a little bit. This tire here just came off of the outside of the right side of Dale Earnhardt's car, and the tire wear is excellent. Now they think they can only go at speed, maybe 1 set on the outside per stop, but they're very pleased with the tire wear. Earnhardt and Allison, they may be home free, but then again, maybe not. That number 11 is really moving up. Now one of the guys at number 11, Darrell Waltrip, passed recently, is with, well, his crew chief is with Jack Arute over on the backstretch right now. Jack?
Normally the backstretch is kind of like the Maytag repairman shop. It's the loneliest place in town, but not today. The attrition has brought some of the back markers to a fine afternoon. Ronnie Grayson is the crew chief on Sterling Marlin's car. First of all, Ronnie, are you surprised at how well you're running?
Well, we wanted to run good here. This is our home track. Of course, our shop's right across the street, and we've really worked hard. And we come over here to practice and test, didn't get a chance to move, so we just had to do the best we could. The car's running real good, and we're all happy about it.
Running this strong up front so early, does that put added pressure on you, the crew, to try and get him in and out of the pit so he can stay up front?
No, I just want to leave him there all day if the cars stay there. I just want him to run like that all day.
Well, it's not lonely here anymore, and if you put your arm around Ronnie Grayson, you can feel him shaking a little bit because he may be feeling the pressure just a tad.
All right, Jackie, and he did make a pit stop during this caution period that has dropped Sterling to 8th position, but he's still on the lead lap. Ron Bouchard has come back out, although he doesn't have a front end on that race car. Bouchard is back out there in competition. He is 53 laps down. Now, Darrell Waltrip is 3 laps down to the field. Terry Labonte is 2 laps down, and Lake Speed also 2 laps down. Out front at this point, the car behind the pace car is Kyle Petty. And right behind Kyle is Father Richard Petty, who, as we mentioned earlier, is in his 400th Grand National race here this afternoon. Dale Earnhardt shown in 3rd spot, followed by Jeff Bodine and then Bobby Allison.
Darrell Waltrip's crew got an awfully good pit stop on the caution flag. he moved up, he was able to pull alongside Kyle Petty because he is lapped down. And I would think Darrell Waltrip right now has an excellent chance of getting one of those lap backs, particularly if we can get another caution flag.
Well, we'll try to establish radio contact here with Jeff Bodine. Jeff, this is Bob Jenkins up in the booth. Do you copy me?
We've got you, Bob.
Jeff, let's go back a few laps to that incident up there in the third turn when Lake Speed spun. Where were you, and was your car damaged because of the incident?
We got through that wreck fine, but the next one where Team Richard blew is when we spun around and somebody slid down into us, but it did hurt the car. We were pretty lucky in both of those accidents.
And the fortunate thing for you, Jeff, is that you didn't lead a lap and you're still in fourth place, so you're looking pretty good.
Well, we think so. The car's running good. We just hope we keep the Levi Garrett car up front.
All right, we'll be watching you. We are about to go back to green here. The pace car is pulling into the pit area. There is Jeff Bodine in fourth spot. The car below him is the number 64 of Clark Dwyer. And with 83 laps about to be completed, we are back to green. Kyle Petty is the leader, the 24-year-old son of Richard from Randall, North Carolina, in that 711 Ford that is prepared by the Wood brothers out in front.
Great start for Kyle Petty because he had Darrell Waltrip on the inside. He wants to keep Darrell a lap down. Why didn't Darrell on the inside have an advantage? Because Kyle Petty was the leader of the race. He's the fellow who starts it. Now, Darrell is trying him on the back straightaway, but Kyle cuts him off.
They almost got nose to tail there on the backstretch, and Darrell came very close to bumping him. But Kyle is keeping Darrell Waltrip a lap down at least this point. Now Darrell is trying the high side up in turn number 2, but still not able to pass. Back down to Jackaroo.
2 points to consider, Bob. One, this brilliant race to the front with Darrell Waltrip and Kyle Petty. That 7-11 team came together this year, and it was somewhat suspect. A lot of people felt that probably it was a poor choice on the Wood brothers' part. They have been very positive about it from the beginning, and this seems to show it right now. The other point to consider is that Kyle Petty today is suffering very badly from the flu. He reported to the hospital emergency room this morning with a temperature of 103 degrees. Seems to me that he ought to get the flu all the time if that's the way he's going to race with it.
Well, you're absolutely right. He's doing a great job, but Darrell Waltrip has passed him, and now Darrell gets one of the laps back, and he's now only down 2 laps. And Terry Labonte is also moving up quickly and trying to get a lap back here. Labonte on the high side of the racetrack in car number 44. Nose to tail and door handle to door handle racing up there in turn number 2. It is Dale Earnhardt right behind Terry Labonte, and Richard Petty is right beside of Dale Earnhardt.
I tell you what, it gets awfully tight getting off these corners for those cars side by side.
Well, we've seen evidence of that greatly already. Kyle Petty, the leader. Kyle's best finish this year in a Grand National race, 5th at the Rockingham 500. He also had a 7th place finish at Richmond on the half mile. He was 11th at Atlanta and 37th in the Daytona 500. But now he's beginning to slow down just a little bit, as Terry Labonte and Dale Earnhardt and Bobby Allison all pass Kyle Petty to the inside of the racetrack, and even Father Richard goes around.
Well, he's got himself on the outside, and he really doesn't have much choice but stay out there and fall back in line whenever he can. And the way the line is, it's going to be quite a while before he can get back on the inside.
Dale Earnhardt is the leader. He has Terry Labonte in front of him, but Labonte a couple of laps down now. Bobby Allison running in 2nd spot. Richard Petty is 3rd. And Jeff Bodine is in 4th spot. Bodine to the inside of Richard Petty in the backstretch. Still some great racing, despite the fact that we have had numerous incidents of cars coming together out there. They're still not letting that bother them, and they're running right beside each other. There is Bobby Allison running in 2nd spot. Bobby qualified in 2nd position for this race and led the early laps, but now he has fallen to 2nd place behind Dale Earnhardt. We'll see if Allison can pass Earnhardt. Allison going to the high side of the racetrack.
Earnhardt's patience is wearing a little thin. He's kind of pushing Terry Labonte through the corners. He's trying to say, Labonte, get out of the way and let us go on, but Terry is trying his best to get one of those laps back.
Continue to watch Dale Earnhardt, Bobby Allison with Terry Labonte leading those 2 down the backstretch. Bobby Allison to the high side of Earnhardt, still looking for an opportunity to pass. Gary Nelson, of course, the manager of the Bobby Allison team, and he is with our Larry Newber.
We're standing by with Gary Nelson, team manager for Bobby Allison. And Gary, with all the yellow flags that we've had today, it's kind of scary to see Bobby running up front in heavy traffic.
Well, it's really an unusual race to have this many of the top cars have problems this early. It's a long way to go, and we're going to kind of sit back and take it easy and hope we survive all the problems, and maybe we'll be there at the end.
Gary, Bobby has won 4 times here. Darrell Waltrip, 7 of the last 8. Is this just a matter of keeping pace with the number 11 now that he's behind?
Well, you know, Darrell definitely has won a lot of races here, but a lot of people forget he won a few in driving a Dyard car, too. So I think the 11 and the 22 are the 2 strongest cars now. The 3 cars also tough, too. We're keeping an eye on those 3, and we'll just see where we are at the end.
Well, last year, the second race of last year, Bobby Allison in the Dyard car apparently had him covered, so we'll see.
We will see. Allison still running right with Dale Earnhardt on the racetrack, but Allison for the moment is still in second place, and now Jeff Bodine has moved up in 3rd spot, very close to the Bobby Allison rear end. Allison high once again in turn 3.
Dale Earnhardt has lost the handle the last couple of laps. I don't really know what's, but the car is extremely loose in the corner and slipping and sliding. He's having problems, and Bobby, ooh, they got together coming off too.
There is the Jeff Bodine car sneaking into your picture on the right behind Bobby Allison. There are the first 3 as they go to the high side to pass Clark Dwyer in car number 64. Bobby Allison's best finish of 5th this year at the Atlanta 500, and now Allison moves to the inside of the ill-handling Dale Earnhardt car. But Earnhardt still able to hold off the challenge as smoke comes from the right side rubber. Great racing. Allison may be able to get him here in turn number 1, maybe turn number 2, or maybe down the backstretch. They're side by side as they go down the backstretch. Earnhardt with just a slight advantage, and now Allison pulls alongside and evens it up. And off of turn number 4, Allison with a slight advantage momentarily, but Earnhardt still is in the lead.
Earnhardt's not letting him take anything. Earnhardt might have found him improved. He seems to run a little better higher than he has been on the low side of the racetrack. And there certainly isn't any traffic up there where he is.
They are approaching slower now. Allison looks like gets a little sideways coming off of turn 4, but manages to hang on to it. And now they're approaching Don Hume, going high to pass him in turn number 2.
That looks like Bobby's chest is going away as well.
Let's get down to Jack Arute, who's with Richard Childress.
And Richard Childress is the crew chief on Dale Earnhardt's car. Richard, it looks like maybe the handle went away on the car a little bit.
We lost the power steering. He's driving it now with just a straight steering box, and it's pretty hard on him right now. He's running without any power steering.
But he's still awfully one tough customer. He's battling back and forth with Bobby Allison. What do you do now? Do you make some chassis adjustments when the power steering goes out?
Ain't much we can do. We'll take a look at it if we get along the caution. But other than that, it's going to be up to Dale from here on.
Well, power steering, it could be a problem later in the race. When you lose it, you know, Benny Parsons, that is a handful.
I do not envy that boy at all. That is cruel and unusual punishment. Having to drive around the racetrack without power steering is cruel and unusual punishment. Neil Bonnet has repaired his car, and he's going back on the racetrack trying to get some Winston Cup points. And, you know, he mentioned a moment ago that his bell was rung pretty badly in that accident. I wonder if that's Neil in the car, or if that might be a relief driver since he was involved in the accident.
He was involved in the incident with Tim Richmond up there in turn number 3 that put a couple of cars behind the wall. Harry Gant is still behind the wall as they do work on that car, but Neil Bonnet and his crew have managed to get that car back out onto the racetrack. Dale Earnhardt continues to lead and now has opened up a little bit of daylight between himself and Bobby Allison. Running 3rd is Jeff Bodine, Richard Petty is 4th, and Ricky Rudd is in 5th spot. 6th place belongs to Rusty Wallace. 7th is Dave Marcus. 8th position, Sterling Marlin. 9th is Buddy Baker. 10th is Bobby Hillen Jr. In 11th position is Kyle Petty. 12th is Jimmy Means, and 13th is Ken Schrader. Those 13 cars are on the lead lap as we completed just a little over a fifth of this race. 500 laps, 266.5 miles make up the Valleydale 500 here at Bristol International Raceway. And this is one of 2 races that we will have for you from this racetrack this year. We'll be back in the fall for the traditional night race here, and it'll be the first time that we will have presented a Grand National race in prime time under the lights at Bristol later on this year. Benny, I'm a little surprised at the crowd here this afternoon. Of course, it's Easter weekend, and perhaps a lot of people are either involved in family activities or perhaps working on this Saturday afternoon. And besides that, it is very uncomfortable out there. As we told you, 52 degrees, but the wind is blowing at about 30 miles an hour and making the wind chill, I know, in the 30s. It's not very comfortable, but a good crowd on hand here this afternoon.
You know, I really felt like that a lot of people was not like us would have to work today, but it looks like everyone that was here last Sunday is back. Great crowd today, and they're seeing a great race. There's Richard Petty and Rusty Wallace still going after it. Richard is having some problems. He's having to go high around each corner of the racetrack. Rusty's able to stay on the bottom of the racetrack, which is clearly the fastest way around the racetrack.
Richard is running in 5th spot, and Rusty Wallace is running in 6th position right now. And that other car in the picture is Ronnie Thomas in car 41. Well, we mentioned power steering problems with Dale Earnhardt. Here's more on power steering.
One item has done more to increase a driver's career span on the Winston Cup Grand National Tour than anything else is power steering. What we have here is a power steering unit that goes on a Grand National car. But just as in every case where there's a good side, there's a bad side, and the Neil Bonnet team discovered it at Richmond, Virginia. When you roll the tire away from their automobile, we'll show you exactly what happened. When he crashed badly in turn number 2 as he was leading the race, the tire rubbed up against the upper ball joint here. The reason for that, he couldn't feel the tire going down because of the fact that power steering was masking the handling effects of the car. The solution here at Bristol, Tennessee, take a whole new set of inputs when they work the turns. Make sure that if a tire's going down, he feels it somewhere else than in the steering wheel.
And Benny, you might elaborate on just exactly what it feels like when something is going wrong with a tire and how that affects the power steering.
Well, the power steering, you certainly would not be able to feel a flat tire like you would without power steering. But power steering is such a tremendous advantage to these race cars getting through the turns. We see at Bristol, you can imagine what these fellows are going through, watching them go through these turns, just how difficult that it really is. Power steering makes that job a great deal easier. Sure, there is some disadvantages, and that, like Dale Earnhardt now, is without power steering, so the car is awfully hard to drive. But that's only going to happen 1 out of every 50 or 60 races. And for the uncomfort that he have that one race, he will have comfort in the other 49 or 59.
Well, lack of power steering is certainly not slowing him down. He maintains the lead and has now about a 6-car length advantage on Bobby Allison. And in 3rd spot is Jeff Bodine. Back with more from Bristol, Tennessee in the Valleydale 500. Dale Earnhardt is the leader of the Valleydale 500 with 126 laps completed. Bobby Allison spins in turn number 2. He was running in 2nd spot, and he has made contact with the wall. So another of the top contenders has a problem here at Bristol. Allison's car has stalled in the infield. Down in the turn 2 area, there is Bobby. The yellow comes out, and another interesting development.
The car's moving again now. I thought maybe he had an engine problem, but the car is moving again. He's got it restarted, and here he comes.
Bobby Allison had led 56 laps of this race, laps 21 through 77. That's when Dale Earnhardt took the lead. And here's a replay, Betty.
He lost something in the right front. I would think that the right front tire went flat or something. He just, oh, Jeff, again, Jeff Bodine just gets by. Again, but the tire is up. Yes, the right front tire is still up.
Well, just one of those things. The car took off toward the wall, and Bobby couldn't save it. Made contact with the wall and spun to the infield.
Possibly there's some oil or something. I think there's got to be something broke in the right front of that car because, well, we'll find out in a moment. There's no speculating.
Bobby Allison has stopped over in the backstretch pits, and his normal pit is here.
That's Phil Parsons right there.
That is Phil Parsons, who dropped out of this race very early, and he's looks
like a steering wheel. He's going to get a steering wheel.
Unbelievable. Phil Parsons goes to his car that dropped out of the race early on and is removing the steering wheel, and apparently will take it to Bobby Allison. Whoops, it's still attached.
Oh, he's got the radios in there. Bobby Allison doesn't have a steering wheel.
Well, that certainly explains why he couldn't save the car and keep it from hitting the wall. There is Phil handing the steering wheel through the window to Bobby Allison, and Allison pulls away immediately.
This is amazing.
Well, here comes Allison now. Out of the backstretch pits. He's being held up there while the field comes around, but he will be, I assume.
That's cruel. They holding him up while the field goes by, right? And he's only 2 laps down and doesn't knock the fence down.
Field under yellow here on the main straightaway, and now Bobby Allison gets back out there on the racetrack, but is heading for his own pit area. 134 laps completed. A lot of interesting developments in this race already, and we've got a lot more to go. We'll be right back.
Not only with all the other problems, Bobby Allison, something has broken his windshield. We see on the windshield chrome there, we see where something has hit it and cracked the windshield. I don't know if it got inside the car. Maybe that's one of the reasons that it did get inside and break the steering wheel. But Bobby they have the hood up now, looking under the hood of the automobile, trying to figure out what's wrong, I guess.
5 caution periods for a total of 34 laps so far. 135 laps completed now as we go back to a green. And a problem just as the green comes out. Neil Bonnet in trouble for the 2nd time this afternoon, hitting the wall on the inside of the racetrack. And I think somebody is trying to tell Neil something. I think he ought to park that car. They race back to the yellow flag.
Park it someplace other than where it's parked, right?
Yeah, I think so. That car suffers even more damage than what it had in the earlier incident, and it was pretty well tore up then.
A moment ago when Bobby Allison had his problem, the caution flag did fly. Darrell Waltrip did get one of his laps down. He now is only 2 laps down and clearly one of the faster race cars here. This thing is not over for Darrell Waltrip.
And that was one of the things I was watching to see where Darrell would be positioned when the green came out again. Darrell is going to make a pit stop here, but if he once again was up front when the green came out, he could very easily get back another lap.
Exactly. You know, you think right now, why doesn't Darrell Waltrip stay on the racetrack and take a chance on making up a lap? Because he has to keep good tires on the car. And we've had a rash of caution flags early on in the race, but at some point in time, if we go 200-300 laps without a caution, without good tires on, he'll be at a disadvantage. So that's why he pits when everyone else does and tries to keep as good a tires as his competition on the car.
There's a leader, Dale Earnhardt. We talked last night, Benny, that you think that perhaps even in at least the super speedway races that we will see a driver change all 4 tires during a green stop.
Yes, I do.
Stop.
I really do, because under the new tire rules, only being able to change 2 on the caution flag, if there isn't a tremendous amount of caution flags, you're going to have a disadvantage. And when do you change the rights? When do you change the lefts? You have to stop on the green and change. Why not take another 10 seconds or 12 seconds and go ahead and get 4 fresh tires? So when the caution flag comes out 20-30 laps later, you change right sides and you're always keeping good tires on the car.
Well, in a little bit over a week, we will have a super speedway race at Darlington International Raceway, and perhaps that's where we'll see this tire rule play even a more factor in determining what happens out there on the racetrack. There is Darrell Waltrip in car number 11, just made a pit stop. He's back out there, though. Let's go down now to Jack Arute.
And I'm with Junior Johnson, the owner of the Johnson Racing Team. And Junior, these cautions seem to be working to Darrell's advantage. You all seem to think you can get your laps back and be in the hunt for the win.
Well, if Earnhardt has any trouble, I think we can outrun the rest of them. So that'd give us an opportunity to be able to get back our laps, because if we can get the lead and hold it, when they have a caution, we'll automatically make up a lap. If he has any trouble at all, I think we'll be right in it.
Well, Dale Earnhardt already has trouble. We've had a report that he's lost the power steering unit in the car. Will that give you an added advantage?
Well, it's just determined on how strong Dale is. If he can stand up there and drive that thing without power steering all day, he'll still be tough, because Neil drove about 200 miles down in Atlanta without power steering. So I wouldn't say that it'd be an advantage. If anything, it'll hurt him a little bit, but he's got to have trouble for us to beat him.
Well, it sounds as if maybe Junior Johnson still wants to sit on the fence for a moment, but the clocking's Benny Parsons, according to you, it looks like Waltrip is one of the faster cars.
He certainly is. He and Dale Earnhardt both are equally as fast. It's hard to tell who is the quickest. Darrell Waltrip has more to gain right now in trying to get his laps back. He will probably be trying a little bit harder than Dale Earnhardt in the next couple hundred laps anyway.
But I don't think we really have to worry about Dale Earnhardt getting fatigued or tired because of lack of power steering out there. Do you?
Oh, I do, because the thing is very hard to turn. I was thinking, while we waited a break a moment ago, I was thinking he's going to be like Popeye. He's going to have arms like Popeye when this thing's over today, because it really wears on you. Well, you can imagine your own car with power steering. When you cut the ignition switch off and the engine stops turning, just how hard it is to turn. These cars are a great deal similar to that, Bob.
Neil Bonnett's car is being taken off of the racetrack. It's on the back of a wrecker there on the right side of your screen. It's being pushed back into the pit area. Bonnet out of the car and okay. Bobby Allison has been in numerous times in the last few laps, and now Bobby Allison is pulling the car behind the wall. It's the guy who led several laps of this race and was running in second spot to Dale Earnhardt before encountering the wall in turn number 2. Bobby Allison is behind the wall, and look who's pulling out onto the racetrack. Harry Gant.
I was just thinking, while one goes behind, one pulls out. So at least we've got the same amount of cars on the racetrack.
So Harry Gant rejoins this race. On the wall down toward the first turn, and as a matter of fact the third turn area, is a yellow stripe, and that is for the rookies. Benny,
you know, when someone told me that, Bob, that was for the rookies to tell them we're at Bristol to back off the throttle to go in the turn, and I thought they were joking. But you tell me that seriously that's for the rookies, and I don't see how it's going to really help them any, because I don't know how they're going to look outside to see the stripe. It needs to be across the racetrack if it's going to do them any good.
You would think it would be very hard to see as they come down the straightaway at
I don't see how. Yeah, I don't see how they can possibly use that. I thought somebody would put it there as a joke.
There is one though at the entrance to turn 1 and the entrance to turn number 3. Two abreast formation once again as we are about to go back to green. The leader of the race is Rusty Wallace in car number 2, with Earnhardt running second and Bodine third. And the speed picks up. The green comes out once again, and I don't think that probably Rusty Wallace will be in the lead very long. He now has Bill Elliott between himself and Dale Earnhardt, but as they go down the backstretch, I think we might see Dale Earnhardt do some passing here and establish himself as the leader of this race once again.
If he doesn't pass, it won't be from lack of trying, I'll tell you that.
Now he's moving to the outside of Bill Elliott, getting the car a little bit wide, a little bit too wide, as a matter of fact, in the second turn, and not being able to pass Bill Elliott. Now he takes a better line into turns number 3 and 4, pulls alongside Bill Elliott, comes down the straightaway and passes Elliott, and now will try to put himself back in the lead. Rusty Wallace right now is the leader of this race in the number 2 Pontiac Alucard Spectrum Furniture car. Earnhardt moving to the inside of Rusty Wallace. Staying behind him though for the time being. Jeff Bodine now running in third spot. Now Earnhardt again to the inside down the backstretch, and this time he will go back into the lead.
He probably isn't as concerned with Rusty Wallace right now as he is Darrell Waltrip. He wants to get in front. Oh, that's
another spin. Dave Marcus loses it and loops in turn number 4. Slows everybody down behind him, and I don't think anybody touched him, but it was a miraculous job of driving by a few of them. Marcus was running in 5th place when that accident occurred.
Darrell Waltrip's trying to get another lap back.
And here he comes, and by golly, he's going to do it. Or is he?
I don't know if the question is whether or not
that was the yellow, or whether they
had already had the caution flag, but he plainly beat Earnhardt back to the line if they were not already under the caution flag.
Well, that's a question we'll have to have answered from NASCAR scoring. Well, we'll take another look at that spin up in turn number 4 involving Dave Marcus.
Well, it just gets touched by Ricky Rudd, just touched by Ricky Rudd. Ricky goes on the inside. That's Kenny Schrader on the outside.
Lake Speed
on the inside.
Everybody manages to avoid it.
Everyone managed to. I thought that Lake Speed, the early accident, the first accident we saw, I thought Lake Speed was going to do the same thing and come back down. But He didn't. He went back up the racetrack, got Darrell Waltrip and Ron Bouchard. I wonder what the world's record is for caution flags.
Back at Bristol International Raceway, and Jeff Bodine, who is running third in the field, has pulled his car behind the wall. And Benny, it looks like they're looking at the underneath side of the car toward the rear.
It looks like they're working in the rear end section of the car, the back section of the car.
Well, we'll try to find out exactly what is a problem from Jeff, if he can hear us on the radio. Jeff, if you can hear me, what's the problem? Do you know?
Bob, we just broke the rear end gears. They've been seeing a little smoke come out of the back of the car. Apparently, we lost the grease and the gears overheated and tore up. They're going to change the rear end right now and try to get back out and salvage what we can.
Well, you were running very well, Jeff. You were in third spot. We hope you can get back out there and at least get some valuable points to keep you in the point lead.
Well, that's what we're going to try to do. Yeah, we thought we were running good enough to win this race. The Levi Garrett Exide Motor Oil beneficial insurance car was running real good. We're going to get it back out there. One thing you don't do in Grand National Racing is that's quit. So we're going to fix it and get back out.
And we'll talk to you when you get back out there. Jeff Bodine in the pits. Dale Earnhardt, the leader. Now running in second spot is Richard Petty. Car number 43 in his 400th Grand National start here this afternoon. Third place is Ricky Rudd. Fourth is Sterling Marlin, who continues to run on the lead lap and is looking very good, as a matter of fact. And in fifth position is Buddy Baker in car number 88. And Bobby Hillen Jr. running in sixth position there in the car number 8 Chevrolet, the Trap Rock Industries car. Bobby, of course, from Midland, Texas. Right ahead of him is Buddy Baker in car number 88. There's a good look at Bobby Hillen Jr.
That kid's going to learn a lot today. He's only about 20 years old. He's going to learn a lot. They run in between Buddy Baker and Richard Petty and some of those other fellas.
He has been in all 4 Grand National races so far this year. Bobby Hillen Jr. has his best finish, an impressive 9th during the Daytona 500. And he finished just outside the top 10 on 2 other occasions. At Richmond, he was 11th. In Atlanta, he was 12th and finished 24 in the Rockingham 500. He is 20 years of age, will turn 21 on June the 5th.
Terrible to be that young. It's a shame that age is wasted on youth or something.
Boy, there's a lot of damage on race cars out there. You can hardly find a car out there on the racetrack that doesn't have some kind of body damage on it. And perhaps one of those cars is Richard Petty. I think he's kept his nose pretty clean out there. But it doesn't look like that car, as you indicated earlier, Benny, is running as well as it could, because he is dropping back and losing positions. Buddy Baker challenging him now for the third spot.
Yeah, he just isn't getting to the turns like he normally does. And Sterling Marlin, again, I don't think we can say too much about Sterling Marlin today, because what a great run for this young man. And I read the other day that this sponsor, Auto Shack, they're trying to entice these people to go with them full time. This is only a part-time sponsor, and today's been a great run for Sterling Marlin in that car.
There is Sterling in car number 95. Young man from Columbia, Tennessee. His father, Cuckoo Marlin, a competitor for many years on the Grand National circuit.
Bobby Hillen, we talked about him a moment ago. Oh, he almost lost it coming off the second corner a moment ago. He's really having some problems right now. But back to Richard Petty and Buddy Baker. Buddy Baker now knows what it's like to be an owner. He is one of the owners of that automobile. He and Danny Schiff down in Gastonia formed their own team, and they're going racing. After 24, 25 years, Buddy Baker has finally gotten up to the point of being an owner.
And the sponsors on that car, Liquid Winch and Bullfrog Knits. Crew chief is Robert Harrington. Buddy currently 22nd in the Winston Cup point standings for 1985. His best finish in the year so far, a 4th at the Daytona 500. He and Richard Petty are going at it out there. 2 veterans on the Winston Cup Grand National circuit, battling for 3rd position here in Bristol. Now Buddy Baker moving alongside Richard Petty in turn number 3, and I would think that Richard might just say, well, you go right ahead, buddy. If you want the spot, you can have it. There's a lot of laps to go.
But he didn't. He's racing him, and that's good, because you would think, what the heck, what's the point? But he's racing him. He's trying to. He still has that urge. Richard Petty still has that competitive urge to race those guys when he tries to pass more. They try to pass him.
One thing that we will update you on is the situation involving Darrell Waltrip. He did get back one of his laps, so he is now only one lap down to the field after that incident in the very early stages of the race in which he lost 3 laps. He's gotten 2 of them back, and if he can get 1 more back, he'll be on the lead lap and certainly a contender for the win here at Bristol. Buddy Baker, as you can see, has gotten around Richard Petty, moving from 18th to 3rd position, as there is Bill Elliott moving to the inside of Buddy Baker down the main straightaway.
Bill Elliott's car is strong today. I walked to the pits early on before the race started and talked to some people, and they felt like that Elliott was one of the cars to beat today, one of the quicker cars here. He was involved in that first accident, had to replace the radiator, but we can see right now that he clearly did have a very good car today.
I believe he lost about 5 laps during that lengthy pit stop that he made to replace the radiator. Bill, of course, has won 2 races this year on the circuit, at Daytona and the most recent Winston Cup race at Atlanta. But in the other 2 races, he's had bad luck, finished 22nd and 29th.
Well, at Richmond and Rockingham, he almost tore the wall down at Richmond, and about the same thing at Rockingham. Destroyed 2 cars in 2 races. I talked to him earlier today. He said he had sprayed his cars with 2 cans of anti-wall repellent. He should have sprayed it with anti-car repellent.
He is 5th in the Winston Cup points at this time. Bill Elliott from Dawsonville, Georgia, in the Coors Melling Ford. There is the leader, meanwhile, Dale Earnhardt, without power steering, but certainly able to hold off the challenges, at least for the moment. He has about a full straightaway length lead now on Ricky Rudd, who's running in 2nd spot.
Earnhardt is really hooked up today. And I don't know that Darrell Waltrip right now, it looks like Darrell is not able to run as fast as Dale Earnhardt, although there is a long ways to go. I think that Darrell right now I would have guessed that he's just riding around. We've only completed 175 laps. Again, 500 laps, 325 laps to go. It's a long ways before this thing's over.
There's the leader, Dale Earnhardt, down the backstretch, headed into turn number 3. There is the leader. Now the 2nd place car is number 15, Ricky Rudd, and he'll be moving into your frame right. Well, he's the 4th car in the line there. There he is. Rudd is following Darrell Waltrip. Now in 3rd position is Buddy Baker in car number 88. And there is Buddy right there, 3rd spot. The interval between 2nd and 3rd shown very graphically for you. And in 4th position is the car right behind Buddy Baker by just a few car lengths, as a matter of fact, Richard Petty. And finally, in 5th spot is the number 95 of Sterling Marlin, and he also is right behind the car right ahead of him. So that sets for you the cars on the lead lap. There are 2 other cars on the lead lap but are almost ready to be lapped. They are Rusty Wallace and Bobby Hillin Jr. So there is the leader, Dale Earnhardt, in the Wrangler Chevrolet. And trouble up in turn number 2. It's Darrell Waltrip who is into the fence again. Waltrip spinning and moving down the racetrack and narrowly missing Buddy Baker. Buddy just squeaked by as Darrell slid down the banking.
If Darrell can get the car going, he'll save a lap, but it doesn't. No, he's going to coast back in towards the pit area.
He's going to do the same thing that Bobby Allison did and move to this area between turns 1 and 2 in the infield. Doesn't look like it's going to be an 8th win out of 9 races for Darrell Waltrip, as trouble has plagued him again. And look who's helping push the car. Phil
Everyone that spins over in the 2nd corner, Phil's over there to direct traffic.
He helped Bobby Allison get a new steering wheel on his car, and now he's helping push Darrell Waltrip back to his pit area. So the Junior Johnson crew has certainly suffered some misfortune here today, as both cars have been damaged severely in accidents. There is Richard Petty in the pit area. The leaders have all come in. Darrell Waltrip brings out this caution period, and Dale Earnhardt is going, as you can see, the activity on pit road. Lake Speed pulls back out, so does Bill Elliott. There goes Richard Petty. Bobby Allison, Harry Gant, Bobby Hillen Jr. and Kyle Petty are still in the pit area. There's Bobby Allison, and he has been on pit road longer than anybody else. Now finally he gets going.
They walked around the car looking at the car like something was wrong with it.
181 laps are completed. Darrell Waltrip has spun and hit the wall up in turn number 2. And here's a replay of it as we will be back with more the Valleydale 500 in a moment. Back at Bristol, Tennessee in the Valleydale 500, our second live telecast of 1985, and the second of many this year on ESPN. We have had 8 leaders in this race to this point: Harry Gant, Bobby Allison, Kyle Petty, Dale Earnhardt, Jeff Bodine, Rusty Wallace, Buddy Baker, and Sterling Marlin. Let's go to Jackaroo.
We're here in the pits with Gary Nelson, who's the vice president in charge of things on pit road for the Dygaard team. Gary, first of all, let's go back to the caution when Bobby Allison stopped on the backstretch. Can you tell us exactly what happened?
Well, it's the strangest thing. The steering shaft going right up behind the steering wheel broke. It's something we could change real quick. We sent a runner over there with another wheel, but you know, we lost several laps there, and what it did was it bent the ball joint. We lost several more laps changing the right front lower ball joint. We're still optimistic that we can have a good finish. We're going to do our best, and maybe we can still pull it off as crazy as things are happening today.
Well, we checked with Phil Parsons, who came to the assistance of the number 22 Allison crew and provided the extra steering wheel. But then in this last pit stop, Gary, you looked to the outside of the car. What were you checking over there?
Well, after a wreck like that, we ran a few laps, and then another caution came out. We just came in. We didn't need to change tires, but we wanted to be extra sure that the car is safe. We want to make sure none of the fenders were loose or flapping or anything like that that could cause us or somebody else a problem, and I think we're in good shape for that.
And Larry Newber is with another key player here on pit road. Let's go to him.
Well, this is Bud Moore, Ricky Rudd's crew chief. Bud won the very first race ever held here as a crew chief, and today you look like you're in a pretty good position.
Well, you know, they are pretty rough out there. There's a lot of little slipping and sliding, but I think we're all right.
Bud right now is on the radio talking to Ricky. So far, things are going pretty routinely for them. They're very happy, by the way, that everything that's happened on the racetrack, Ricky so far has been able to avoid. So the hopes are very high here in the Bud Moore Ricky Rudd pit.
Well, Benny, last week during the late model sportsman race, it was pretty much a survival of the fittest, in which Darrell Waltrip was successful, and it looks like it could be that situation here this afternoon.
It really does. I tell you what, anybody that inherits the lead or is running well has either hit the fence or someone else, with the exception of Dale Earnhardt, and he has power steering problems. So today has not been very lucky for anybody.
Well, is winning a race strategy? Is it a good race car driver? Is it a good race car? Or is there also an element of luck involved? And that brings us to our question of the week for this week about superstitions.
We're doing a question of the week on superstitions. Does Jeff Bodine have any superstitions?
Just not to worry about superstitions, I guess. Well, I wouldn't really say that I'm superstitious. I just don't take any extra chances of black cats, ladders, and money laying on the ground. I'm sort of peculiar about picking up a penny that's tails down.
Well, I don't know if you'd really call it a superstition, but, and I noticed I walked up to the car. I haven't told the boys because it embarrasses them a little bit, but I really don't like my name on the car.
I don't have anything that's green. I don't have anything that has the number 13 on it. Like if I go to the store and buy something and it ends up like $5.13, I'll buy something more extra just to change the 13. Or if I sign in at the registration and the pit pass has a 13, I won't sign in. I'll make them give me another one. And just little things like that.
Well, there is Neil Bonnet, who will not give up the fight here this afternoon. Despite being in the wall twice, he is still out there. What about superstitions with Benny Parsons?
Oh, I don't know. I used to say, no, I'm not superstitious, but I'd carry coins that people would give me, and I had a couple of Buckeyes that people gave me to carry around. And I signed in Atlanta this year and received pit pass 255. My race car number is 55, and I received, I think, pit pass 255. I thought it was an omen. I finished 8th. Jackie Arudis was with someone in the garage area. Jackie?
Well, Benny, this driver might be a little superstitious today. Darrell Waltrip, you had the problem early, and now you're out of it. What finally knocked you out of the Valleydale race?
Well, I guess the engine blew that time. I think I broke a rod or a crankshaft or something, but not been a very good week for the Waltrip family. Stevie had a miscarriage on Wednesday, and I guess you might say I had one today. Not trying to be funny or anything, but the day didn't go well for us, and hadn't been a very good week for us.
Well, you can be sure that all of racing's hearts and prayers are with you and Stevie and your time. But your pick right now for the winner. Who's the toughest guy in the racetrack right now?
Earnhardt. He's running really well, and you know, he looks like he could have a real easy time of it. He's not got anybody to race with, and my best, you know, hope he does well. And I'm around. I'd like to relief drive if anybody needs me.
That's the story. Back to Green Flag Racing.
All right, Darrell, and we will see you for the Trans-South 500 on ESPN next week at Darlington. And another car that has come back out onto the racetrack, Jeff Bodine, has made repairs in that car, and he is back out in the race. But Dale Earnhardt is the leader right now, with Richard Petty running second, Rusty Wallace is third, Buddy Baker fourth, and fifth is Bobby Hillen Jr.
There's some debris down the first turn, and we're going to have another caution flag, yet another caution flag for a piece of metal laying down in the first corner.
And it's just above the groove, and I hope that everybody can avoid hitting it. Lake Speed goes to the high side, so does Buddy Baker and Sterling Marlin to avoid that piece of metal in turn number one.
It said Pontiac on it. I don't know.
So the crew will come out and get it off the racetrack, and we once again slow down for a caution period. 191 laps are completed. We'll be back in just a moment. The green flag comes out once again, and we are back to racing. Out of the first 196 laps, 62 have been run under caution. Earnhardt continues to set the pace now, with Rusty Wallace running in second spot. The car Dale Earnhardt's is Ron Bouchard. He's shown 53 laps down. Bill Elliott is right behind Rod Bouchard, and he is 11 laps down. There is Ricky Rudd in car number 15, and he is in sixth position right now and moving up quickly.
Well, he stopped on the last caution flag and changed left side tire, so he now has 4 fresh tires on his automobile. Dale Earnhardt did not stop, so you would think that Ricky Rudd, for the next few laps anyway, would have an advantage. The disadvantage is he's got about 8 cars between he and Dale Earnhardt.
7 cars are on the lead lap. And the battle now shaping up for second position. There is Sterling Marlin, Richard Petty, and Ricky Rudd, but right ahead of them, the battle for second involving Buddy Baker and Rusty Wallace. Baker has now moved into second spot in that number 88 Oldsmobile, and a car into the wall in turn 2. That is Terry Labonte and Ken Schrader, I believe, also.
That's correct. Excuse me, Bob. I was watching those fellas when they crashed.
Oh, I heard a pop. Could that maybe vindicated the tire or something?
No,
they
somehow got together, and Schrader, he does have a right front flat.
Yeah, he does.
Yes, that could have been what you heard.
So Schrader will move into the pit area. He was running in the top 10, I believe.
The caution flag is out again.
Although we do not have any car that is stalled on the racetrack, the caution does come out because of the incident involving Ken Schrader and Terry Labonte. Actually, they just kind of got together, and both of them into the wall slightly, but both were able to continue. Nevertheless, the caution flag is displayed by Harold Kinder, the official NASCAR starter.
There must be, the truck's going towards the second turn. There must be some debris over there knocked off those cars, Labonte and Schrader, when they got together. What is the world's record for caution flags?
Well, I don't know, but this could possibly be a world's record. There is Bobby Hillen Jr., and the crew chief on this car is Suitcase Jake Elder. He's with Larry Newber.
Well, this is Jake Elder, who's been with a lot of teams in the last 3 or 4 years. One of the guys that, of course, is hoping for a big surprise today is Bobby Hillen Jr. Things look like they're going pretty routine, Jake.
Yeah, we're just dodging all the wrecks. We can do that all day. We'll be all right.
At this place, what is Bobby saying on the radio? Is the car feeling pretty good?
Feels pretty good, yes.
Well, things look like, I guess the word is routine, Benny, down here, at least with Jake Elder.
He's right, Larry. If he can dodge the wrecks, he'll be okay today. You would think that a 20-year-old driver would be in every accident that happens, but today he's been doing a good job. Yeah. Maybe he's got some lucky coins in his pocket today.
Boy, I'll tell you, our superstition feature that we did this week is certainly timely, because a lot of guys out there have had a lot of luck with them to avoid some of these accidents that we have seen.
When Darrell Waltrip blew just a moment ago, hit the fence as he came off the racetrack, down the racetrack, Buddy Baker went by him, and he had to miss him just by inches.
Inches at best. There was a good look at Bobby Hillen Jr., the 20-year-old from Midland, Texas. We're still not halfway through this event, and we've had something like 9 caution periods. We'll be right back. 207 laps completed. The leader is Rusty Wallace. Second position, Richard Petty. Ricky Rudd is third. Bobby Hillen Jr. is fourth. Dale Earnhardt is fifth. And we have a total of 7 cars on the lead lap. And the green is about to come out once again. Rusty Wallace leads them down. Jeff Bodine, the car to the inside. He is several laps down because of a mechanical problem that he had earlier. They race down the backstretch, and Wallace maintains the lead. We'll be watching Dale Earnhardt possibly moving up through the field once again. He has been the dominant car and driver combination in this race, really since Bobby Allison relinquished the lead early on. But another car that's looking very strong is Ricky Rudd. He is the 4th car in the line, number 15, running behind Richard Petty, Jeff Bodine, and Rusty Wallace. Kyle Petty joins that 5-car freight train as they head down the backstretch. Let's hope we can run several laps here without a caution so that we can really get a determination of who exactly is running strong. We know that Earnhardt is, but aside from that, they haven't really raced enough, Benny, to determine who might be able to give him a challenge.
Exactly. It is an unknown as to who is the second best car here. Dale Earnhardt, we know, is the strongest car, but we got Rusty Wallace, Ricky Rudd, Richard Petty, Bobby Hillen. I don't have any idea which of these cars is the fastest, who's going to be racing for second spot, because let's face it, Earnhardt is racing for first.
It's interesting, Benny, because of the 7 cars that are on the lead lap, 3 of the drivers have never won a Grand National race, namely Rusty Wallace, Sterling Marlin, and Bobby Hillen Jr. So we could see a first-time winner here this afternoon. We're focusing in on Ricky Rudd, the 4th car in the line here. He is running 3rd in the race. Richard Petty in 2nd, right ahead of him in the lap car of Jeff Bodine, trailing the leader Rusty Wallace.
You know, Jeff Bodine right now probably could get by Rusty Wallace and go on, except, you know, what's the point? He's 50 laps down. There really isn't any point in trying to wreck the car for the satisfaction of passing someone. And we see in the very back end of the line, the 5th car in line is Dale Earnhardt.
Earnhardt taking the high line and smoking the tires going through turn number 2, but he is on his way up through the pack once again. Kyle Petty has slowed down significantly. He was up there with the leaders when the green came out about 5 laps ago, but since has fallen off the pace considerably, and now the leaders are about to approach him and lap him.
He had a pit stop just a moment. He had a flat tire, had to go in the pits. He's back on the racetrack, but as you mentioned, about to be lapped by the leaders.
There is the leader, Rusty Wallace from St. Louis, Missouri. He is 12th in the NASCAR point standings right now. Was 11th in this race last year and 18th in the 2nd race here at Bristol last year. And Dale Earnhardt moves to the inside of Ricky Rudd coming off of the corner. And now those two are still battling side by side, but Earnhardt now passes Ricky Rudd. And Earnhardt moves back up into 3rd position. He's the 4th car in the line here, but in 3rd.
Car is really working. I wonder on the caution flags, we'll have to talk to Jackie or Larry Newberry and see if they have been able to do anything for him in his power steering during all these caution flags.
Battle for 5th and 6th position involving Bobby Hillen Jr. and Buddy Baker, and those two have been racing together for quite some time.
All day long, and that's 3/8. That's a pretty good hand.
If you're playing poker, why, you got a pretty good shot of winning. And trouble! Sterling Marlin hard into the wall in turn number 1. He hit it for a ton. The back end of the car and got up on the wall, Benny, it looked to me, and came almost to the point of going over it, but the car slid down the banking and is now resting, as you can see, with half the car on the apron of the track and half in the grass.
He did hit it hard. I did not see the action. I heard Ken Martin yell, and I looked up and saw him as he come off the fence. We can see the black marks, and something must have happened going in turn one, and he backed it right in the fence, left rear. Hit very, very hard. And Ken Martin, who you mentioned, who is doing the scoring and the spotting for us up here in the booth, mentioned that he did indeed brush the wall coming down the straightaway. So perhaps something let go in the car as it came down and then backed into the wall very hard down in turn number one. Here's Larry Newman.
Well, this is Richard Petty coming into the pits, of course, a relatively routine pit stop under these conditions. And you know, this race has been dedicated by many members of the crew to Horst Fischer. Now, Horst, who was known as Kraut around the racing circles, passed away a little more than a week ago. He was the first, you might call him the official factory truck driver for Grand National Stock Car Racing. Everybody knew the personality of Horst Fischer around the racetrack. He was buried earlier this week wearing his STP racing uniform, and all the crew is remembering Horst, and wouldn't it be nice to win for the Kraut here today?
Richard Petty, his 400th Grand National start, and is running an unofficially third position as we near the halfway mark. And look at the career earnings of that man. $5 million. $5,637,000 to be exact. So Richard Petty, of course, has been carrying the STP colors for many years, and along with that, here's an STP pit stop.
This is another STP pit stop, and I'm Larry Newber. You know, preparing for a Grand National Stock Car race is obviously an important part of the life of a race driver. Richard Petty has been in 940+ Grand National Stock Car races. Richard, is there one element that's most important in preparing the night before a race?
Well, really, I don't do a whole lot different than I do any other time. You know, my system's set up to take going to bed at, you know, around 11 o'clock or something like that, and getting up as late as I can. And, you know, as far as eating the food and stuff, I try to, you know, keep the same diet all along. I try not to change anything because, again, my system is set up for certain things, and if you start changing just for 1 or 2 nights, then that messes up your system. So the best thing to do from that standpoint personally is just keep continuing to do what you've been doing.
Now, you need to stay in shape. The heat really takes a toll on you. What foods does Richard Petty eat on a regular basis?
About anything he can get in his mouth, I guess. You know, anywhere from hamburgers, hot dogs, to steaks and fish. Fish is probably my favorite food, but, you know, that part is just a matter of taste, I guess, of what somebody likes. And, you know, as long as I sort of halfway take care of myself as far as doing it every day, then I don't really worry too much about it.
Richard, you're one of the fortunate ones. You have started over 900 of these races, so preparation has become almost a routine for you. But still, do you take the time maybe to find some quiet moments the day before, the night before the race, and sit down and think about this race particular?
Well, I think some of the bigger races, you probably try to play the race in your mind. The big deal is we get to the racetrack 2 or 3 days before the race, then we go out and we adjust ourselves to that speed of that racetrack, the handling of the car, talking to the crew, you know, trying to be as loose as you can and make everybody feel like it, you know, we're going to win this one too. And, you know, from my standpoint, I really don't get that uptight about a race. You know, because I have run so many races, it's just a routine deal, and I don't really get that uptight about it.
Now, you've stuck with the number 43 your entire career, but does Richard have any superstitions or any last-minute routines or rituals that he goes through before he races?
No, superstition has nothing to do with it. If you're prepared, you know, you'll be able to do the job. If you're not prepared, being superstitious one way or the other doesn't make a lot of difference.
Thanks, Richard. This has been another STP Pit Stop. I'm Larry Newber.
Back here at the Valleydale 500 at Bristol International Raceway, I'm Jack Arute here in the pits, the back pits, in fact, and I'm with Sterling Marlin, who brought out this last caution. Sterling, first of all, what happened with the Sadler Chevrolet?
Well, we was going down the front chute, and we blew a tire going in the number 1 corner, and, you know, wasn't much you could do, just hang on and ride it out. But, you know, that Auto Shack Chevrolet is really running good today, and, you know, we felt like we had a chance to finish in the top 5, so, you know, we're not quitters. We'll definitely be back.
Describe your feelings, though, when you've had it all go up in smoke, when you've had such an incredible run.
it's just frustrating. You just wish, you know, it's not much you can do, but come back next week and try it again.
Well, we've gone back to green. Let's go up to Bob Jenkins and Benny Parsons.
All right, Jackie, thank you. The green is out once again, and Earnhardt moves back out into the lead. Ricky Rudd now second. There is our leader, Dale Earnhardt. 21 cars are still on the racetrack. We have 9 officially out of the race, and those 9 that are out include Darrell Waltrip, Joe Ruttman, Phil Parsons, Mike Potter, Sterling Marlin, who we just talked with. Also, J.D. McDuffie is out of the race. Dave Marcus and Tim Richmond is out, and so is Phil Good. Race for 5th and 6th position, Bobby Hillen Jr., who's been racing with several drivers, and now he's hooked up in a battle with Rusty Wallace.
Rusty Wallace passed him just a moment ago going in turn 3, and I thought Rusty was going to spin trying to get underneath the 8 car, but somehow the 8 car is back in front of him again.
If you are just joining us, and we are not quite halfway through this 500-lap race, we've completed 231 laps. We have seen numerous caution periods. In fact, we have had, I believe now, 11 caution periods for a total of 71 laps. And some of the caution periods have been for rather serious looking accidents, but nobody has been seriously injured. Neil Bonnet had what he described as his bell rung during the first accident of the afternoon, but he was able to get back out there on the track. In fact, is still out there in competition. So it's been an exciting afternoon, a very lengthy race even to this point, and we're not even halfway through yet.
Well, some of the cars that have been knocked out of competition, they by accident, is Joe Ruttman, Bill Elliott, Darrell Waltrip, Neil Bonnet, Bobby Allison, Harry Gant, Terry Labonte, Ron Bouchard, and Lake Speed. You know, so folks, your favorite driver was here. He started the event today, and some of these fellows are still on the racetrack, but several laps down after repairs on their cars.
Fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth battling on the racetrack. There is Lake Speed in car number 75. Right ahead of him is the defending Winston Cup champion, Terry Labonte, car number 44. Both of those drivers are a few laps down to the field. Bobby Hillen and Rusty Wallace running to the inside, and looks like that both Labonte and Lake Speed will at least try to pass. He got cut off there by Bobby Hillen. Lake Speed did as they got onto the backstretch.
Bobby Hillen had no idea that Lake Speed was on the outside of him. Came off turn 2. Up to racetrack he went.
Dale Earnhardt, certainly the strongest car out there right now. Running behind Dale Earnhardt on the racetrack is Bill Elliott as they come down the straightaway here. There is Bill. You can see him trailing the leader. He is now at least, I would say, 10 laps down. He may have made up a couple of laps, but still Bill Elliott is well off the pace here.
You know, looking at these cars right now, it's really hard to figure out if Dale Earnhardt is taking it easy, he's slowed down, or if Bill Elliott really is running as well as his car was capable of running when the race started today.
And I think just as important, the question is, are Ricky Rudd and maybe Buddy Baker and Richard Petty, who are in the top 5, running as hard as they can run, knowing that we're not halfway done yet?
Well, that's true, because there is 260 laps to go. We've only completed 240. It's a long ways, and Dale Earnhardt, some of these fellows might know, has had a power steering problem. It may or may not be fixed. If it hasn't, 260 laps is a long ways to drive the thing without power steering.
It's been an up and down day for Kyle Petty. He ran in the lead, as a matter of fact, at one point and stayed in the top 5 for a while, but has had some tire problems recently. Here's Larry Newber with more on that story.
Well, Bobby has recently had some tire problems, and when the day started out, we had a flu situation. How is Kyle feeling in the cockpit, Leonard?
Well, to start with, he had a plug wire to come off and was skipping for a good while. Got him a lap down, and then we got that fixed, and he got back out, and then he had a flat tire, so he got us behind again, but he's running pretty good right now.
Leonard, there's also a lot of talk about the racetrack before the race began today. Anything from Kyle on the radio about the track digging up?
No, the track was okay. We wasn't having any problems until it started skipping.
Well, this is Leonard Wood. He's been one of the pride and joys, him and his brother Glenn, for the Ford Motor Company for well over 20 years, Bob and Benny.
Now, this is a good chance, Benny, to talk more about this tire rule. We talked about it earlier, and I don't think you ever said whether you're for it or against it.
Well, I'm for it, really, because at Atlanta last fall, in a 25-lap period, Bob, there was 3 caution flags, and we changed 12 tires. And it's crazy. And for 37 miles, we put on 12 tires, 3 complete sets. At least with the caution flag now, we've only would have put 6 tires on, or half that. And I think it's a good rule, and it should save a lot of money in a year's time. Sure, there's some disadvantages, as Terry Labonte has found out. He goes in the pits a moment ago with a flat tire. He changed the rights, discovered he had a flat tire. So it's a 2-lap penalty. But one of these days that's going to happen to me, so therefore leaving out.
We're timing Dale Earnhardt's lap here. You know, before the race started, we were looking down over pit road, and we, of course, were observing the tires that were stacked up there ready to be put on as Dale Earnhardt comes around and stops the clock at 18.2 seconds. So we'll see how that compares to what second place Ricky Rudd is running. We unofficially, that's about 105.4 miles an hour right now. Here comes Ricky Rudd, and we'll try to time this lap. That added up to about $45,000 in tires that were waiting to be put on a race car. So it is hopefully going to save crews a lot of dollars during the entire year.
Well, last spring at Richmond, Virginia, in a 400-lap race on a half-mile racetrack, the competitors mounted and used 792 tires. That's $125,000 worth of tires.
Yeah.
So,
well, Ricky Rudd is running just slightly faster than Dale Earnhardt on the track. Ricky Rudd 18.1, 106 miles an hour. So he's closing in on Dale Earnhardt. But again, the question is, are both of them running at the top of their capability?
That's exactly right. I would think, just looking at the race right now, I would think that both of them are kind of waiting to the 400-lap mark to try to get something going, because there's no point in knocking the wall down right now, as everyone else has.
That's exactly right. Earnhardt moving down the straightaway. Bill Elliott is still right behind him. Now Earnhardt moving to the outside of Ronnie Thomas from Christiansburg, Virginia, in the Thomas Racing Chevrolet. Earnhardt with about a full straightaway length lead on Ricky Rudd. Several of the drivers that were involved in incidents earlier today, including Bobby Allison, Ron Bouchard, Lake Speed, Terry Labonte, Harry Gant, are still out there on the racetrack, but really not in a position to win this race. Jeff Bodine, another that falls into that category. And another driver that we understand that is running just about as fast as anybody else out on the racetrack is Ron Bouchard, and you really wouldn't think that looking at the front end of the car.
Well, that's living proof that aerodynamics does not help you at Bristol, believe me, because he doesn't have any. They're all gone.
Bouchard following Terry Labonte. Let's go down to Larry Nuber once again in the pit area.
Well, we are in Ron Bouchard's pit right now. This is Wayne Bumgarner, who is Ron's crew chief. Apparently, the car is working pretty good despite the modified effects in the front end, Wayne.
Well, we've got a few things bent up, but we've adjusted. It's not real bad. We're just kind of, we're going to let the rest of them race, and we're going to practice the rest of the day.
How does Ron say the car is handling?
I didn't hear you.
How does Ron say the car is handling out there?
Well, it's not bad. I mean, we're bent up, you know. We feel like if we hadn't got in the wreck, we'd have been put back to the race. Of course, that's a big if.
Well, they were hoping for big things to happen here this week, Bob and Benny. They had a great week of practice, but apparently all goes for naught in the main event.
Well, Ron may feel somewhat at home in this car. Of course, he's a former modified driver, open wheel driver, and he's got open wheels at least at the front end of the car.
That's right. If he would just put him a little piece of sheet metal from the windshield down to the radiator, he would have a modified, because his front tires is exposed to the world.
You know, Benny, we have seen this type of thing many times in the past few years. Cars that take either the front end or the rear end of the car clear away but still stay out there on the racetrack. Is there a noticeable difference in the way the car handles without body work on the front end or the rear end?
Not really. It's difficult to drive because of not having the fenders of the hood to go by. that's the only thing. But as far as if the wheels are in place and the front end setting is like it's supposed to be, that's really the things that makes a difference. And you know, the reason that they're out there, the people would say, why is Ron Bouchard on the racetrack with a car like that? Because the Winston Cup Championship is what they're all after. This is only the 4th or 5th race into the season, so no one is defeated. They all have a chance. It pays to the winner $250,000. A lot of money, Bob.
And 2 or 3 laps this early in the season could very definitely make the difference later on in the year. 261 laps have been completed. The leader is Dale Earnhardt. Ricky Rudd is running second. We'll be back with more of the Valleydale 500. Well, the cool weather certainly did not keep the crowd away from Bristol Raceway in the Valleydale 500 here this afternoon. We're at Bristol this weekend. Next weekend on the 14th, Sunday at 1 o'clock Eastern Time, we'll have live coverage of the Trans-South 500 from Darlington International Raceway. Harry Gant, the defending champion there, but Darrell Waltrip, Ricky Rudd, Bobby Allison, Cale Yarborough, and Benny Parsons will be trying to move into victory lane next Sunday at 1 o'clock live here on ESPN. 271 laps have been completed. Here's the situation in the Valleydale 500. The leader is Dale Earnhardt. Second place is Ricky Rudd. Third, Buddy Baker. Fourth, Richard Petty. And fifth is Rusty Wallace. There are 21 cars still out there on the racetrack. 9 cars are out of the race, namely Darrell Waltrip, Joe Ruttman, Phil Parsons, Mike Potter, Sterling Marlin, J.D. McDuffie, Dave Marcus, Tim Richmond, and Phil Good. All of those drivers out of the race. We have had numerous caution flags displayed over the racetrack and numerous accidents, but none of the accidents have been of any serious nature. They have caused, however, several of the favorites to be in a non-competitive situation here, namely Harry Gant, Lake Speed, Ron Bouchard, Bobby Allison. All of those cars had suffered body damage enough to, and pit stops enough to keep them out of a chance to win this race. So the continuing story here is that of Dale Earnhardt. Richard Childress, the crew chief. Here is Jackaroo.
Richard, the main thing we want to know first, an update on the power steering condition. What have you been able to do, if anything?
Nothing. We just checked it under the stops a while ago, and it's still got the belt on it. It must be something internally, so we're just going to have to leave it up to Dale.
What about the fact that he's running just as bloody strong as he is already? We're just over a little bit past halfway. Does he have anything left, or is that all she wrote?
Well, right now he's just running as comfortable as he can with the steering like it is, but it's a little tough when he gets in traffic.
He's going to have 2 slings for his arms when he gets done today without any power steering.
Yeah, it's just making him tough.
Well, that's the story from one tough customer's pit area back up to the tower.
Still maintaining about a full straightaway length lead on Ricky Rudd, however, at this time, maybe a little bit more than that. Now, we gave you the top 5 just a few seconds ago. The only other car on the lead lap is Bobby Hillin Jr. 2 laps down in 7th position is Terry Labonte. 8th position, also 2 laps down, is Lake Speed, and in 9th place is Kyle Petty. In 10th position, 3 laps down, is car 52, driven by Jimmy Means. In the 11th spot, 5 laps down, rookie Ken Schrader. In 12th position, 6 laps down, Ronnie Thomas. 13th place, 8 laps down, is Eddie Burschwale. In 14th position, car number 9, driven by Bill Elliott. He is 11 laps down. There is the number 41 of Ronnie Thomas running in 12th position.
Ronnie normally runs very well at this racetrack. This is probably the worst I've ever seen him at this racetrack. He normally runs high and does a tremendous job. Today, evidently, he doesn't have it hooked up as well as he has in the past. Second generation driver, his father, Jabe Thomas. And Ronnie followed Jabe around the racetrack many, many years, and 4 or 5 years ago started driving himself.
This is his 3rd race of the year. He did not compete at Daytona and did not compete at Atlanta. But at Rockingham, he finished in 12th position. Rockingham, he was 34th. In Richmond, he was the 12th place finisher. The 1978 Rookie of the Year on the Grand National circuit, Ronnie Thomas from Christiansburg, Virginia. There's the leader, Dale Earnhardt, putting another lap on another rookie who is this year going for Rookie of the Year honors himself, Ken Schrader. Now the leader is in quite a bit of traffic as a lot of slower cars are ahead of him. The car right directly in front of the leader is Jimmy Means in car number 52. While we're talking about rookies, Eddie Birchwell from San Antonio, Texas is also in the battle for Rookie of the Year honors. He's driving the number 6 DK Ulrich car. There he is down the backstretch. He's had a few problems this afternoon, including a spin, but nevertheless is still out there in the race.
His father is a fellow named Don Birchwell from San Antonio, Texas. In 1972-73 was a Grand National owner. He finished 4th in the 1973 Talladega 500 with a fellow named Clarence Lovell driving his car. Clarence went home back to San Antonio. They had a party for him on Tuesday night. On the way home, Clarence had an accident and was killed on the highway. And that was the last we saw of Don until Eddie has grown up, and here he is on the racetrack again. And Don is back, very interested in his son's career.
Well, Eddie has competed in a few races, but as I said, is in the battle for Rookie of the Year this year. And here are the Rookie of the Year point standings. Ken Schrader with 42, Eddie Birchwell with 22, and Don Hume, this is only his second race here this weekend, has 9 points. Jeff Bodine is once again behind the pit wall, and we'll raise him on the radio if we can. We do see Larry Newber down there at the car, but let's raise Jeff on the radio. Jeff, what's the problem this time?
Bob, we burnt the rear end out again. What we've got is an aluminum cover on the front of our rears that holds the seal in, and the seal is coming out of that cover. Of course, that lets the grease out. Then we burn the rear end up. We're putting one of Tim Richmond's rear ends in the car now. It doesn't have this type of seal arrangement, so that once we get that in, it should last the whole race.
Jeff, why was the aluminum retainer? Just to save the weight?
I don't really know, Bob. I guess we'll find out when we get back to the shop. You know, you always try to improve your equipment, and I guess we went a little too far with this deal, and it's costing us.
Okay, we'll see when you get back out there.
And look.
We were unable to buy those other seal retainers. We were forced to buy that. That's all that was on the market.
10-4, Harry, we got you. So he said that that's the only one they could buy was the aluminum style, and was not trying to save weight. That's all was available.
And we noticed that Jeff enjoying an apple during his pit stop. All right, Buddy Baker continues to run well here in car number 88. There he is, as you mentioned, Benny is a part owner of this car this year.
Well, you know, Danny Schiff was a sponsor for a long time, and he was very interested in the racing business. He and Buddy Baker got together, and I think it's a good situation for both of them. And I think Buddy Baker would agree, and I think we have something on. Oh, there's trouble right in front of Baker.
Right in front of Buddy Baker. Ronnie Thomas loops, and Richard Petty is also going to be involved in this incident. So another yellow. That's up in turn number 2. Ronnie Thomas getting sideways right in front of Buddy Baker as we were talking about him. And the yellow does come out, although Ronnie is able to gather it in and continue on the racetrack.
Just another caution flag, Bob.
Just another caution. That's our 12th of the afternoon. And it means that Richard Petty is going to come in for a stop. And it could mean that several of the other leaders will be in for a stop. And we'll take another look at what happened as we were talking about Buddy Baker, and right ahead of him as they went into turn number 2, Thomas a little bit sideways.
Well, it looks like Ronnie just simply, the car got away from him right there. He was not able to control it.
And look at Buddy get on the brakes.
Yeah, and Ronnie's got it locked down. But Buddy manages to get by on the outside. I don't think that he and Ronnie made any contact whatsoever.
But there was contact between Ronnie Thomas and Richard Petty as Petty nudged him in the front end just a little. I don't think there's serious damage. Richard Petty is pulling out of the pit area right now, and we take a look as he goes back out on the track. There is some front end damage, but it's not serious at all.
Simply a love tap, Bob.
Bobby Allison also into the pits and now back out again. We're almost 300 laps into the 500 lap Valleydale 500. Back in just a moment. Back at the Valleydale 500 in Bristol, Tennessee. 300 laps even have been completed, and Buddy Baker had a narrow escape of a spinning Ronnie Thomas out in turn number 2 just a few laps ago. We're about to go green for the restart, but before that, let's go down to Jackaroot, who's with Buddy's crew chief, Booby Harrington.
That's Robert Harrington. It was a close call for Buddy Baker. What did he say to you on the radio?
Well, he said it was real close. He didn't know why he spun out, but he said, I swear I never touched him, so we don't know here.
Quick, go. You can hear him telling him, go, 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 go. We've gone back to green. Real quick, Robert, do you have more in the car? Can you catch Earnhardt by the end of the race?
I don't think anybody's going to catch Earnhardt.
Well, that's the story from your second place runner.
All right. So Buddy Baker escapes a spin and is still in the top 5. As a matter of fact, he is still in 3rd spot. Ricky Rudd is now the leader of the race, and Dale Earnhardt is 2nd with Baker in 3rd spot. 4th is now Rusty Wallace. I think maybe Bobby Hillen Jr. is now in 4th position, and going a lap down right now, as a matter of fact, as they come down the straightaway, is Rusty Wallace.
Actually, exactly right. He was lapped just about 15-20 laps before the caution. Rusty Wallace was put a lap down by Dale Earnhardt, and now by Ricky Rudd.
There is Buddy Baker in the number 88 Oldsmobile, the Bullfrog Knits Liquid Wrench Oldsmobile. And there is a difference being a driver and an owner, and we asked Buddy Baker about that situation.
Well, you know, the good part about it, I know whether the driver's giving 100% or not. And I have this year. I've tried very hard to establish the team, and you know, a couple of years from now, I won't be doing the driving. But right now, I feel that I'm very competitive, and at least there's no, as you say, between the car owner and driver, there's no problems between us. We both speak the same language.
Buddy Baker from Charlotte, North Carolina. We've had 9 leaders in this race, and Bill Elliott has moved around Ricky Rudd to get another of his laps back. And Ricky Rudd now finds Dale Earnhardt once again, moving in on him as Baker continues to run in 3rd spot. There is Bill Elliott, and there is Ricky Rudd. And a car smoking badly coming down the straightaway may have had some contact with the outside wall. That's Don Hume. And Hume moves to the apron of the racetrack in turn number 2. I think he's going to make it to the pit area, and no caution. But Don Hume has damage to the right side of that race car.
Looks like he made contact with the outside retaining wall, and the right front tire was flat. I don't know if that's what caused the contact, or once he made contact, the right front tire went flat.
And there is a look at Don Hume, the driver who hails from Charlotte, North Carolina. And Don Hume in the battle for Rookie of the Year. And they have found some sponsorship on that car. The Harper Corporation of America is sponsoring that car. They manufacture a heavy-duty hand cleaner. So it's Catherine Harper's Clean Hands Formula race car.
I read the other day that that's a 5-year deal.
That is correct,
that is
yes.
A 5-year contract.
Yeah. So Don's career certainly given a boost by the fact that he was able to secure that nice sponsorship.
Where did Ricky Rudd come from? I mean, all of a sudden he wasn't able to outrun Dale Earnhardt, and now Earnhardt cannot gain on him. Well, Earnhardt's a half a straightaway behind and not gaining right now.
You're absolutely right. And again, the question is he trying, or is that the way it is? I'll tell you, Rudd has looked very strong to me all race long. Not as strong as Dale Earnhardt, but I think Ricky Rudd has a real good shot of winning this race if he can stay out of trouble.
Well, you said that earlier on during one of the breaks, Bob, and I wondered about that, but I'll have to agree with you. It looks like he really has an opportunity. Plus, I think Harry Gant spins coming off the 4th corner.
Off the 4th corner, Gant spins and bumps the inside wall, and another yellow flag comes out. Liquid has poured from that race car, and that's going to mean the crew's out on the track and probably a lengthy caution period. Well, we have seen several cars, Benny, come down off of turn number 4 and spin to the inside of the track. Could it be that slick spot up there in turn 4 that Jack Arute touched on at the very beginning of the program?
Bob, I've been watching that corner, that spot up there, and it looks like it healed up. Once the race got going, it appears to me as though that spot healed up, and I don't really foresee having any problem up there.
Well, they worked very hard on that spot up there in turn number 4. During the week, it began to break up a little bit last weekend when we were here, and they worked very hard to get it back in shape, and I agree with you. It looks like it is holding very, very well. There is Richard Petty in the pit area. They are changing rubber on the left side of that race car, and the windshield is being wiped off for Richard. Richard lost 2 laps when he was involved in that incident with Ronnie Thomas a few laps ago. The leader, Ricky Rudd, pulling back out onto the racetrack, and Dale Earnhardt, who's in second position, also pulls back out onto the speedway. All right, so another caution period with 315 laps completed. This because of a Harry Gant spin in turn number 4 onto the main straightaway. And as you can see, Harry has pulled into the pit area to get some fresh rubber on that car. While we're yellow, we'll take this break and be right back in Bristol. As you rejoin us, the green flag comes out once again. Ricky Rudd and Dale Earnhardt go down the backstretch now with Ricky Rudd leading by about 3 or 4 car lengths, but now Dale Earnhardt begins to move in on Ricky Rudd, and I think we're going to have a new leader in the next few laps, Benny.
We've been waiting for 150 laps for a race. I think we're going to see one.
I think you're absolutely right. We may have our first real serious racing here. It's been mostly crashing and banging and one yellow caution period after another. But now I think we're going to get out of some real serious racing. Earnhardt moving in on Ricky Rudd, as Clark Dwyer in car number 64 is right ahead of this duo on the racetrack. Clark just pulled out of the pit area and now is being lapped once again. Both cars will go to the high side, or will they? Yes, they do. Coming out of turn number 4. Both are able to get around Clark Dwyer.
Clark Dwyer was black flagged for illegally passing on a caution flag a moment ago. He had to duck in the pits, and that's one reason he was in the pits.
Only 3 cars are on the lead lap besides these 2. Buddy Baker is on the lead lap. Then in 4th position, 1 lap down, is Rusty Wallace, and in 5th, also 1 lap down, is Bobby Hillin Jr. Dale Earnhardt racing with Ricky Rudd. And Dale cannot make the pass, at least at this point. Either way, Jeff Bodine is back out on the racetrack. However, again, who got out the most recent is in the pits doing extensive work on that car. There's Jeff Bodine, by the way, as the leaders pass him on the backstretch. There is Jeff, who's been in and out of the pits many, many times and was involved in one of the accidents early on in the race, but that Levi Garrett Chevrolet still out there in competition. Well, Dale Earnhardt appears content at this point to stay back there in second place. Benny, is that of his choosing, or can he not make the pass?
I think that it's of Ricky Rudd's choosing. I think Ricky is keeping him back there. I believe that Earnhardt would be in front if he could, because there's always a chance that the 15 car is going to blow an engine and you're going to be involved in the accident, as we saw today when the 27 Tim Richmond blew. But I think right now Ricky Rudd is about as good as Dale Earnhardt, and it may be because of the power steering. Earnhardt may be worn out trying to wrestle that car around the racetrack, and his arms may be just weary.
Pit stops are always an exciting part of any competition. Here's Jack Arute with more on that.
Well, Bob, pit stops indeed are very important. And one of the most important areas is in the jackman. And there you see we've isolated the Bullfrog Racing team. Their jackman is Buddy Baker came in for the pits. Now he's carrying that jack, and that weighs about, anywhere from 70 to 150 pounds. He's got to hit the mark perfectly under the car, then begin to pump up, 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 because he's got to get the wheels up off the ground high enough so that the tire changers can remove the tires, remove the lug nuts, put on the new tires, and he's also got to check to make sure that they've got enough lugs, and then he drops the jack. Let's go back up to you, Bob.
All right, Jackie. Well, the tool that each individual jackman uses very often is of his own creation. And here is more on that.
One piece of equipment that's standard on all Winston Cup Grand National pit crews is the jack. But it's a lot different than the one we're looking at here that you could buy at your local auto parts store. Watch how hard and how many times you have to pump to get the car up off the ground. Well, that'd cost just too much time on pit road, especially during a green flag stop. So what the teams do is they take a race day jack and they work it into a finely tuned piece of equipment. The first places they take a look at is down here in the cylinder area with these jacks. They remachine them and rework them so it'll take only 3 to 4 pumps to get a car sufficiently up off the ground to change 2 outside tires. That's the type of jack we see here with the Tim Richmond crew in the old Milwaukee Pontiac. Their jack has got 4 wheels on it and looks very standard. When you move to Richard Petty's STP Pontiac jack, you see they've added a handle and foregone the wheels in the front to add some frontal stability under the car. As we move down to Joe Ruttman's crew, they've decided that they need the handle, but they don't need wheels at all, and they slide the jack around on the tarmac on pit road. As we go to the Bill Elliott jack, you notice that they've drilled a lot of holes in it. That's to lighten the jack up and make it a little less cumbersome when it comes over the wall. But probably the best jack that we've seen here at Bristol is the jack that's used by the 7-Eleven team with Kyle Petty at the control of the Wood Brothers Ford. You'll notice that it looks a lot like the Coors Melling jack. However, there's one very important difference. All of the holes here, the handle, no wheels, but it's made out of solid aluminum. Much lighter than any of the jacks we've seen on pit road, should make for much faster pit stops, especially in green flag conditions.
You know, I got to give credit where credit is due on the jack situation. That cylinder that Jackie said that the teams redesigned and what have you, there is a company in St. Joseph, Michigan called Auto Specialties Company that does make the power units for those jacks and have been making for the past 12, 15 years. Then the guys take that power unit and make all sorts of, you know, aluminum jacks, jack with no wheels and what have you. But the power unit is a piece that you can buy, Bob.
Well, essentially nothing has happened since we left for that little feature on the jack with Jackaroot. Ricky Rudd continues to be the leader, and Dale Earnhardt running just behind him, keeping him in sight, but not passing at this point. There are a couple of people that we would like to thank for their hospitality and their graciousness while we've been here in the Bristol, Tennessee area on 2 weekends. Last weekend, of course, the rainout and the late model sportsman race, and today's running of the Valleydale 500. Larry Carrier and Ted Jones and everybody else associated with Bristol International Raceway, we thank you for your hospitality, and we look forward to the night race that we'll be bringing you live on ESPN later this summer.
Side by side, Dale Earnhardt and Ricky Rudd. Earnhardt has the lead. They ran across Ernie Birchwall coming off the second corner. One went inside, Earnhardt went outside, and Earnhardt ended up in the lead.
Now we'll see if he can pull away from Ricky Rudd, and that might tell us if indeed Earnhardt is the far superior force in this race. Ooh, he looks like he may have had some slight contact with Clark Dwyer there, and again, one goes one way and another goes the other.
I'll tell you what, these fellows are really racing in the slower cars. It's hard to imagine just how fast they go around this racetrack. These fellows, Earnhardt and Rudd, are going at it tooth and nail right now.
We have had 15 lead changes, and 9 drivers have held the lead so far, but Dale Earnhardt has led most of the way. Richard Childress, of course, the crew chief, and let's go down to Larry and update the situation involving the power steering and other problems that might be plaguing Dale. Larry?
Well, other problems maybe, but right now they're feeling kind of confident. This Richard Childress himself used to be a former Grand National driver. Richard, Dale's out there fighting without any power steering. Is he getting tired? At least will he admit it?
Well, right before that last caution he was, whenever he get in traffic, he has to work pretty hard. Other than traffic, he says, it ain't that bad, but it's pretty hard.
Are you guys showing us all you have right now? Are you faster than Rudd? Can you determine that?
Well, right now, I told him just save himself and run a pace where he could. So he's doing like we want him to right now.
Well, Benny and Bob, it looks like neither Ricky Rudd or Dale Earnhardt made that decision. This guy, Richard Childress, made the decision.
Ricky Rudd has a problem right now. He really doesn't need to be behind Earnhardt because he has no grill. You can see the front of his car, the grill is gone. He has no screen over that car. And I think that Larry or Jackie, if someone could go down and check with Bud Moore, find out what happened to his grill, because right now Earnhardt could throw a stone or something back and break the radiator on that automobile.
You're absolutely right, and I had not noticed that until you mentioned it. So it probably did happen just a few laps ago. So Rudd continues to run behind Dale Earnhardt as we still have 153 laps to go in this race. 3 cars on the lead lap. Besides the 2 on your screen, Earnhardt and Rudd. The 3rd car is Buddy Baker. 4th, Rusty Wallace, and 5th is Bobby Hillin Jr. Well, he's not moving away from Rudd, though. There's been no real daylight opened up between the two.
Well, right now we've had a rash of caution flags all day, Bob. If this race were to go green flag the rest of the day, I think Ricky Rudd will win the race, because I think Earnhardt would wear out without power steering. If there's a couple more caution flags, yes, Earnhardt can win the race.
Well, the longest period that we have gone without caution in this race, 68 laps. That occurred between laps 227 and 295. So let's go down once again to Larry Newberg.
Well, this is Bud Moore, Ricky Rudd's crew chief. Bud, Benny Parsons was speculating that maybe you guys are watching the fact that you have no grill in the car. Ricky has to lead. Is that a factor?
Well, I didn't quite understand the question you asked me. The car's running real well right now, and looks like we got it hooked up pretty good, so we're looking forward towards the end of the race.
Has Ricky speculated as to whether or not he is faster than Earnhardt out there right now?
Well, Earnhardt is our main competition. It's going to be hard to outrun him, but I feel like it's down towards the end, we'll work on him real hard.
Well, when it comes to the category of years of experience, Benny and Bob, you've got to look to this guy right here. He's been around, a couple of years.
Since about 1960, as a matter of fact, Larry. Tell Bud I said good luck.
Let's go to Jackie Arute at the other end of the pit area, who's with Ronnie Thomas.
And a cruel twist of fate for Ronnie Thomas. Ronnie, we understand that you've been fined $200 by NASCAR for profanity.
Well, that's what they said. Well, I understand NASCAR said I give them a finger. I was throwing up, but they was only supposed to penalize me 1 lap, and they penalized me 2 laps. Said for passing the leader something on the caution. You know, it's...
Well, what do you do now? It's a tough break for an independent like you.
Well, you know, nobody's making me do it. It's a tough game, and the bad thing about it, this thing, if you ain't got $1 million to play this game, you don't get to call your own shots. If you got a big sponsor and a lot of bucks, you can do things a little bit more way your way on the track. But when you're a little guy like me and ain't got much, you get pushed around a lot.
Well, that's the way an independent sees it here on the backside of pit road.
Well, that's an interesting observation, Benny, and we might talk about that. Is it $1 million game that we're dealing with here?
Oh, yes, it is $1 million game. That's exactly what it costs to play. But there's some guys out there without $1 million who is doing the job. I'll tell you what Ronnie Thomas is going to do. He's going to give him $200, and he's going to come back.
That's absolutely right. All right, there are the first 2, Dale Earnhardt and Ricky Rudd. Buddy Baker is running 3rd, then Rusty Wallace and Bobby Hillin. 357 laps completed. We'll be back with more in a moment. We invite you to join us every Thursday evening at 7:30 p.m. for Speed Week, an update on the world of auto racing all over the United States. Every Thursday night, Larry and Uber and I will give you the news for the world of auto racing and the results from the world of auto racing. Speed Week. And Dale Earnhardt got sideways up in turn number 4 a half a lap ago, or now almost a lap ago. And Ricky Rudd moved into the lead again. We'll take a look at the half spin that Dale Earnhardt did.
Well, he's on the outside of Ken Schrader. He's lapping Ken Schrader going in turn 3. Oh, they touched. They just touched as they enter turn 3. That happened to me in 1979 with 15 laps to go, but I didn't save it. I went on around and finished 5th that day and had a lead with 15 laps to go.
Now I've had 16 lead changes among 9 drivers in this race, with a little over 100 laps to go, about 136 or so. We have had a total of 14 How many caution periods have we had? We've had 13 caution periods for a total of 82 laps. And we have about 18 cars still out there on the racetrack. But many of the favorites dropped from the wayside very early, including Darrell Waltrip and Ron Bouchard and Neil Bonnet, and some of those drivers are still out there. Their chances of winning this race were eliminated early. Many caution flags, many accidents, and a couple of accidents that have resulted in hard contacts with the wall, but no injuries in this race. That was a pass for 5th place there. Terry Labonte was able to move into 5th spot and put Bobby Hillen Jr. back to 6th. And Lake Speed is also in the battle, and he now moves into 6th spot, and Hillen moves back to 7th.
That's how to lose money real fast, isn't it?
Yeah, but we're beginning to see, Benny, that some of those drivers that we just talked about, some of those who lost several laps in the early stages of the race, like Lake Speed and Terry Labonte, are now up into the top 5, and Richard Petty.
Exactly. Well, all the cars, not only did they just had minor problems as compared to some of their competitors. Harry Gant, Neil Bonnet, Bobby Allison, Darrell Waltrip. These fellas, the 44, Terry Labonte and Lake Speed, have only lost 4 or 5 laps. Some of their competitors 50 laps down.
Rudd with about a 7 or 8 car length advantage on Dale Earnhardt as they go down the straightaway and put another lap on Kyle Petty. Ricky Rudd, I think about a year ago about this time, when Ricky was shaking off the effects of a horrendous crash during the running of the Busch Clash at Daytona International Speedway, but then came back in the very next race to win it at Richmond, Virginia, and he finished in 7th position in the Winston Cup points last year and is currently 11th in the point standings this year.
One of the most unbelievable acts of courage or things that I have witnessed in Grand National racing was Ricky Rudd in Daytona. As you mentioned, in the Busch Clash, he flipped, I don't know, 7 or 8 times. It was really a violent crash. He spun at 190, 200 miles an hour and went through the air up and down. The concussion, his eyes swelled tremendously, and they swelled shut. Bud Moore and the crew had another car, had a second car at the racetrack, and on Tuesday they had it ready to go. Ricky Rudd's eyes were swelled together.
Yeah,
he took tape and took his fingers, spread his eyes, and then taped the lower lids down so that he could see to drive the race car.
That is an act of courage, as you said, and certainly points up the fact that race drivers enjoy doing what they're doing.
You know, and there's somebody did a piece on the fact that race car drivers do play hurt, just like football players, and that's a prime example.
Rusty Wallace is now running right ahead of Ricky Rudd on the racetrack, and Rusty is in 4th place, but he's about to go 2 laps down. Let's go down to Jack Arute, who's with Dale Bryant, the crew chief on the car. Jack?
Darrell, you've got to be pleased with the run so far for Rusty Wallace today.
Yeah, we're real pleased. We got off there just a little bit a while ago. We got a lap down, but the car's really worked good all day. The Aya Guard, we're doing pretty good with it.
How tough is it to take a young kid like Wallace and put him on a brutal racetrack like this one?
Well, it's pretty tough because you got to concentrate on 500 laps instead of maybe 200 laps. So you really got to keep your driver really working well all day to keep him up there.
Well, Darrell Bryant has been checking the watch each and every time and apprising his driver as to what his times are. So it's been a good afternoon for the Aluguard team.
There's Rusty Wallace, and he has had 2 top 10 finishes already this year. The Daytona 500 8th and a 9th place finish at the Rockingham 500. And he has just gone 2 laps down here at Bristol, but maintaining the 4th place standing. There is Dale Earnhardt, who is running in 2nd spot, and he has definitely not been able to move up on Ricky Rudd since that little incident down there in turn number 3 in which he had contact with Ken Schrader and did a half spin.
A moment ago, Bob, I talked about Ricky Rudd playing hurt in Daytona last year. My hat's off to Dale Earnhardt, because I know how difficult a time he's having out there without his power steering working properly. And the fact that he's still able to get around this racetrack at all, much less have a shot to win this race, is incredible. And he is one tough customer, there's no doubt about it. The Wrangler, his sponsors, their advertising promotion that's what they say about Earnhardt. He's one tough customer. I believe everything they say after today.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Battle for 6th and 7th position on the racetrack. It is involving Lake Speed in car number 75 and Richard Petty in number 3. Richard Petty's 400th career Grand National start has not been all that successful for him, but I'm sure that Richard Petty will be in the winner's circle again before his career is over. He has led this race, but not for very long. And right behind Richard Petty is Bill Elliott.
Been around a long time, you know, since 1971 was the last time that Richard Petty missed a race. I think it was Macon, Georgia in November. He decided not to go to that event, and that was the last event that he's missed. For a long time, Richard and I were tied for consecutive races. And then in 1982, when I missed the Firecracker 400, I think it was like 317 straight races I had competed in. Richard has went on and completed in 83 more since then, competed in. It's amazing. The man is 47 years old, and he still goes at this sport just like he did 25 years ago.
And this is his 963rd career start, 400th consecutive start, but his 963rd career start, and he has won 200 times. Bob Jenkins, Benny Parsons, Jack Arute, and Larry Newber back at Bristol International Raceway for the Valleydale 500. 104 laps to go, and we are about to go green once again. The most recent caution period brought about by a spin over in the backstretch involving Lake Speed, Bill Elliott. And here comes the green, back to racing once again. All of the leaders came in for a pit stop. Ricky Rudd won the battle out of the pits, and he continues to maintain the lead with Dale Earnhardt running in second spot.
Rudd got a tremendous jump that time. He stood on the throttle back a little before the other drivers were expecting it and got a tremendous jump on Earnhardt.
But this caution period that we just finished of 5 or 6 laps was probably enough to relax Dale Earnhardt enough that he's raring to go again, and in fact right now, as you can see, is moving in on Ricky Rudd.
Well, I would think that it was relaxing, but his arms has got to be getting weary by now. It looks to me like I've been watching his line around the racetrack. It looks like that Earnhardt is not driving the car through the turns, but is more or less letting the car go where it wants to in the corner and then doing a little steering as he comes off the turns, trying to save his arms as much as he can.
Jeff Bodine, an up and down day, mostly down for him really. He's still out there on the racetrack in competition. As a matter of fact, Jeff Bodine is the leader of the Winston Cup point battle going into this 5th race of the season. He has 618 points. Neil Bonnet second with 588. Terry Labonte third, Darrell Waltrip fourth, and Bill Elliott fifth. And the point standings are going to be scrambled because most of those top 5 are not going to pick up very many points. Probably Labonte is going to be coming out looking better than anybody else.
I would think that Terry Labonte will end up leading the Winston Cup championship after today, last year's champion. So he by now, oh, there Earnhardt is going by Rudd, coming off the second corner.
Going to the inside, Earnhardt looking for the lead. They go into 3 almost side by side, traveling at well over 110 miles an hour. Earnhardt inside and Rudd outside, but Rudd holds off the challenge. And now we are less than 100 laps from the finish. I think, Benny, those cars are pretty equally powered and able to run about the same speed.
It looks like they are. It looks like that Earnhardt is really getting through turns 3 and 4 much better than Rudd. But Rudd seems to have it about the same advantage up in 1 and 2. It's a Mexican standoff right now. Who knows?
It's Ford against Chevy. Ricky Rudd in the Ford and Dale Earnhardt in the Chevrolet. Right now, the Ford is the leader. But look at Earnhardt once again going low on the racetrack in turn number 4 and onto the straightaway. But Ricky Rudd able to hold off the challenge.
As close as these two cars are right now, my money's on Buddy Baker.
Is that right? Well, Buddy is now a lap down, but is still in 3rd, and who knows? We've seen stranger things happen in this race today so far. That's
as close as these cars are. Kenny Schrader and Lake Speed got together coming up 4th corner, but we're going to watch the race for the lead right now between Ricky Rudd and Dale Earnhardt, and it is a barn burner.
It is indeed. We mentioned that Buddy Baker is 3rd, Rusty Wallace is 4th, Labonte unofficially in 5th, and Lake Speed and Richard Petty.
Oh, there goes Earnhardt. Whatever his name is, the 3 car.
Well, again, not successful in moving into the lead. Side by side off the corner again, but Rudd pulls away coming down the straightaway. Now they have a slower car in front of them that may mean the difference here. That's Clark Dwyer, but they're going to pass him on the backstretch, at least Ricky Rudd is, and Earnhardt also able to pass him just going into turn 3. And a good race here between Richard Petty and Lake Speed. Richard Petty right now has the position. Lake Speed, the number 75 car, and Kyle Petty getting a little loose and going to the inside and really slowing up things. Harry Gant hard on the binders off of the 4th corner.
That was a mess, or it started to be a mess, I'll tell you that. Kyle started to pass Richard, lost the car, and did a tremendous job saving it. Got on the flat part of the racetrack, and really, I don't know how he saved the car down there, but he did. He just had to slow the car down tremendously, which Lake Speed, Harry Gant, the rest of them almost ran over him.
Well, Lake Speed is currently 8th in the point standings, that number 75 Nationwide Pontiac. Now, Lake Speed was the leader of the Winston Cup points early on in the season. He has 2 top 5 finishes this year. Of course, was 2nd in the Daytona 500, was 4th at Rockingham, and was 10th at Richmond. So it's been a fairly successful season so far for Lake Speed, although his luck hasn't been all that great here this afternoon. He was involved in the very first accident of the race up in corner number 3.
That's exactly right, and that sponsor was Nationwide. That's an auto parts chain. Yeah, okay. Nationwide out of Columbus, Ohio. Here we are, Ricky Rudd, Dale Earnhardt. Nothing changed, folks. They're still bumper to bumper.
They are indeed, and 413 laps completed now, so we are nearing the final stages of this race. They will both be able to go the distance now without a pit stop if there are no more caution periods. And by the way, we have broken a record for caution periods here at Bristol. The record was 12. We've had 14 so far this afternoon, and the NASCAR Grand National record is 17. I hope we don't break it.
So do I.
So we will be back with more of the Valleydale 500 from Bristol International Raceway with Rudd and Earnhardt battling for the lead. Thank you for joining us here at Bristol International Raceway for the running of the Valleydale 500 for Grand National cars. And this is not only a .533 mile oval, there are also other facilities here at Bristol International Raceway. Here's Jack Arute.
Bristol International Raceway is more than just a stock car facility. Located at the crossroads between Tennessee and Virginia, it has a little something for everyone. Nestled behind the half-mile Bristol facility that runs the Grand National cars and well within earshot is the world headquarters for one of the best sanctioning bodies in drag racing, Larry Carrier's International Hot Rod Association. All of their activities take place right in that building behind me. But also within just a few short steps of this facility is one of the racetracks that they sanction with some of drag racing's best competitors competing on the quarter mile at speeds well in excess of 200 miles per hour. The whole shots just thunder through the valley here, and some of the best blinding speeds you'll see in any drag racing facility occur right at Thunder Valley Dragway. It certainly is a different sight when the bleach boxes are empty and the starters' Christmas tree lights have been put up till the next event. Directly behind me, you'll see the quarter-mile drag strip, and beyond that, the runoff area. But something's a little different about Thunder Valley Dragway. There's a right-hand turn at the end of that runoff area. The reason? Well, there was a mountain in the way, and it would have taken too much dynamite to go through it, so they went around it. You want to bust some broncs? Well, you can do just that behind Bristol Raceway as well, at the Thunder Valley Stables and Showgrounds. Now, the barns behind me are where they house Arabian show horses that are sold periodically here. And in front of us, right here across this fence, is a rodeo stadium where they bring in some of the best professional rodeo riders to the southeast, right here within earshot of Winston Cup Grand National Racing. The entire Bristol facility is such a wonderful melding together of horses and rodeos and drag racing and Grand National stock car racing. You name it, it's here at Thunder Valley. And the thing that's most impressive to me is the cleanliness. The whole place is just so spotless. Well, almost. Back to you, Bob.
Fortunately, Jackie was assigned to the pit area today, and the worst he had to step in was oil. But anyway, we again salute the hospitality of the people associated with Bristol International Raceway, Larry Carrier, Ted Jones, and everybody else. And what we have is an excellent race going on here with 438 laps completed. It's still anybody's race, but Ricky Rudd leads Dale Earnhardt right now. Here's an interesting graphic concerning the starting position of the race winners. 12 times the pole position winner has won the race. On 9 different occasions, the driver who started second has won, and 7 different occasions the third place starter has won, so on down the line. Now, Ricky Rudd started this race in 6 spots, so we could very definitely add a 6 to the number of drivers who have started from 6th position. There you can see 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. Basically speaking, the further up front you start, the better your chances are. But Dale Earnhardt started this race in 12th spot and certainly has a good shot at winning.
He sure does. I think that the #1 spot has been swayed by Junior Johnson's success over the years, because Darrell Waltrip, his driver for the last 3 or 4 years, and Cale Yarborough, his driver for the 5.
Oh, look at
Earnhardt
this.
is alongside him.
Oh, they touch.
They touch.
But Earnhardt still cannot get around Ricky Rudd. Now they're again side by side in the corner, but Rudd with the advantage as they come off the corner and go down the straightaway, and we have seen that numerous times here in the last 50 or so laps. Rudd with the advantage off the corner and down the straightaway.
He's really getting a good shot off that corner when he does run the high groove.
Well, we don't know everything that's going on in that Dale Earnhardt car, but from what we know at this point, I think we would have to say that if Dale Earnhardt does lose this race, one of the very important factors was the fact that he did lose the power steering.
I would think so, and if he does win the race, I think he's to be more than congratulated for winning the race, but for toughing it out and being able to drive around for all these laps with no power steering.
But that's certainly taking nothing away from Ricky Rudd, who has had an outstanding afternoon and right now continues to lead. We'll be back with more from Bristol International Raceway and the Valleydale 500 in just a moment. The final 54 laps are about to be unveiled here on this half-mile racetrack at Bristol, Tennessee. With banking and degrees, it has boiled down to a contest between Ricky Rudd and Dale Earnhardt. We have had 17 lead changes among 9 drivers, 14 caution periods for a total of 87 laps. But in the last 100 or so laps, we have not had the caution periods that we had earlier in the race. And that could very well be the difference between the fact that Dale Earnhardt is running in 2nd spot and the fact that he might have been leading. He lost power steering and is really struggling with that race car, it would appear from our vantage point. Let's go down to Jackaroo.
Well, Benny Parsons, you are so right about the technique that Dale Earnhardt is using going in and out of the turns here. We just spoke to Richard Childress, and he has reported that several times since that last pit stop, Dale Earnhardt has complained on the radio that his right arm is going to sleep. So they are conserving as much as they possibly can, and according to Childress, they're just making selective stabs at the lead. So we'll just have to wait and see until maybe the last 10 or 15 laps to see if the stab technique will work here for Richard Childress and Dale Earnhardt.
All right, so our observations confirmed by Richard Childress. Rudd with now a 5 or 6 car length advantage on Dale Earnhardt. Well, the track conditions down in turn number 4 really have not deteriorated that much. At the beginning of our program, we talked about turn number 4 and the fact that the sealer was coming up in that area and could play an important role in this race. But Benny, I really don't think it's been a factor here. It's held very well.
Neither do I, Bob. I think you're exactly right. The racetrack has not been a factor. What has been a factor? Just good, hard, close racing. And the cause of that, the reason for that is caused a lot of accidents. A lot of cars have been torn up, but yet we still, here we are with 45, 50 laps to go, and we still have a race. Ricky Rudd, Dale Earnhardt, and right now, who knows who's going to win? I certainly don't, and I don't think either one of those guys do.
I don't think so either. Running in third spot, 2 laps down, is Buddy Baker. Then fourth is Terry Labonte. In fifth spot is Rusty Wallace. Sixth position, 3 laps down, is Richard Petty. In seventh is Bobby Hillen Jr. Eighth position, 4 laps down, is Kyle Petty. In ninth is Lake Speed. 10th position, 6 laps down, is car number 52, driven by Jimmy Means. And in 11th position, 7 laps down, is Ken Schrader in the number 40 Ultra Seal Ford. Ken, of course, from Fenton, Missouri. So we have now less than 40 laps to go, and Rudd continues to hold on to the lead. Can he hold off Dale Earnhardt? We'll be right back. At Bristol, there is the leader, Ricky Rudd, car number 15. In second position, right behind him, car number 15, the Chevrolet, driven by Dale Earnhardt. And that basically is the story at this point. We've been mentioning throughout the race that this is the Valleydale 500, and perhaps some of you are wondering who or what is Valleydale. And Benny, it's a meat packing and processing company. Exactly right. It's here, its home office and its plant is here in Bristol. And for the past 3 or 4 years, they've been sponsoring this race, bringing some of their customers in and the VIP lounges, and it's worked very well for them. And believe me, it works very well for us, the race fraternity. Now the leaders begin to move into heavy traffic once again as they come down the straightaway. They both move to the outside and pass Clark Dwyer, and they pass Don Hume, who has recovered from his spin and is back out there on the racetrack. Now they approach Bill Elliott and Rusty Wallace. Wallace running in 5th position, and he's 3 laps down. Clark Dwyer, car number 64, is, as you can see, battling alongside Don Hume. Clark is from Colorado Springs, California. This is the Elmo Langley car, and he has competed in all 4 previous Grand National starts this year. Was 18th in both the Daytona 500 and the Richmond 400, 37th at Rockingham, and 20th at Atlanta. He's 21 years of age, and unofficially we have him in 14th spot. I think this is his second or third year on the circuit, and looks to be going to be a pretty good race car driver down the road with a little experience. Well, he's persevered here this afternoon. Several of the rookies and less experienced drivers are still out there on the racetrack simply because they stay out of everybody else's way. I'm sure they're out of trouble, that's for sure. Terry Labonte has been making some tremendous progress catching Buddy Baker in the last few laps. It looks like there's going to be a contest for 3rd spot before this thing's over. We only have 28 laps to go, but I think that Labonte is going to be able to catch him before the thing is over. You know, Earnhardt looks like, Bob, that he's out of it. Yeah. You know, Rudd will get a 10 or 15 car advantage, and you say, well, there goes Earnhardt. But you know what? You look up the next minute, and Earnhardt's 2 or 3 car lengths behind him. I don't know where he's finding it, but he keeps coming back, Well, it's certainly not a race to leave your television sets, believe me, because it could very well be with 5 laps to go or 10 laps to go. Dale says, hey, I don't care if I have power steering or not, and I don't care if this thing goes all the way. I'm going to go for the win. That's exactly right. And look, he's back again, only a few car lengths behind. There's trouble coming off turn 2. And Don Hume spins off of turn number 2. And slow down and stay behind him. But once again, we have a caution period, and it's going to be a race back to the yellow flag here on the straightaway. Ricky Rudd is going to maintain the lead, but it gives Dale Earnhardt some more rest time. That's right. I tell you what, 24 laps to go. Earnhardt can do it. Yeah. I think with the rest, with the adrenaline, I think Earnhardt can do it if his car is capable. Ricky Rudd might have something left too, Bob. We never know. That's true. This is our 15th caution of the afternoon, and this is a very important caution because probably we can go the rest of the distance now without a caution. Here come the leaders into the pits, by the way, and this is an important situation because whoever gets out onto the track first could very well keep the lead the rest of the way. We'll watch it closely. Good strategy. Good strategy. Let's go down to Jackaroo.
We're down here in the Wrangler pits of the second place machine, Dale Earnhardt. Dale is just sitting placidly in the car, and he just gasps it going back out. You can hear it. A real quick stop for Earnhardt. We'll have to see if he beat his nemesis, though, the 15 car of Ricky Rudd.
I would say that those stops didn't vary more than 0.2 of a second.
They were exactly the same, but the big thing is that the Ricky Rudd automobile changed right sides. Dale Earnhardt changed left sides. Now, before the tire change rule, that would change both cars would have changed 4 tires. Exactly. So it really didn't make any difference. But now, why did Bud change rights and why did Richard Childress change lefts? Big difference.
Very interesting situation develops, and we're going to go back green here in just a moment. But before we do, we'll take this break. Back with more of the Valleydale 500 in a moment. Two abreast formation on the backstretch, and we anticipate a green flag this next time around. We'll see who gets the jump off of corner number 4. We only have 22 more laps to go, and this could be a battle to the end. Ricky Rudd and Dale Earnhardt lead him down. Rudd with the advantage. Earnhardt, though, right on his back bumper as they head down the backstretch.
And Terry Labonte has passed Buddy Baker for 3rd spot.
So last year's Winston Cup champion, despite the fact that he's 2 laps down, is back in 3rd place. Earnhardt goes way high on the racetrack, gets the car a little bit sideways, and Ricky Rudd, and they bump going into turn number 3. Well, at least Dale is telling Ricky that he's back there.
Yeah, he knows it. Believe me, he knows it. Well, I don't know. He felt it.
Now Earnhardt pulling alongside of Rudd down the backstretch. Let's see who gets into the corner first. It is Earnhardt with the advantage. Although
Rudd comes back.
They cross the line, and Earnhardt is slightly sideways, and Rudd leads that lap. This could be the situation through the rest of the race now.
They
with
touch
18
again.
to go.
They're touching as they come off the second corner.
This is just like Friday night at the old dirt track. They're bumping and carrying on and trying to win this race. Earnhardt, though, has passed Ricky Rudd. And now we'll see if Earnhardt can stretch out the lead. I believe he's doing it. He's a couple of car lengths ahead of Ricky right now. 184 laps will be completed when they cross the stripe. There it is. Labonte is in 3rd, Baker is in 4th, and Rusty Wallace is in 5th position. Let's throw it down to Jackie Arute, who can answer the question that you and I talked about, Benny, about the change of tires at last pit stop. Jack?
Well, Bob, I can answer it as far as Richard Childress is concerned. And you saw it when he passed Ricky Rudd, when Dale Earnhardt passed him. They elected to go for the left side tires because Childress said they weren't getting a sufficient bite coming up out of the hole, out of the corners. They thought if they went to the lefts, they could accomplish that feat and take the lead, and indeed that's what's occurred.
All right, that is an answer to that question. Well, Benny, is your opinion any different at this point? Can Dale hold him off?
Yes, he can. He only has 14 laps to go. He certainly can hold him off from here. And it looks like the strategy with rights to lefts, which one was the correct side to change, it really looks like the left side was the side to change because Earnhardt is sticking much better now than he was for the last 200 laps.
This will be Dale's 3rd win, by the way, here at this racetrack. He hasn't won since 1980, but he won in 1979 the Southeastern 500 and won this race in 1980. He's also had a few second-place finishes, but this will be Dale's 3rd win if he can hold on. And it would be Ricky Rudd's 1st win here at Bristol. He has had second-place finishes on 2 occasions, but has never visited victory lane at Bristol International. Stretched out the advantage to almost a half a straightaway as we have 11 laps to go. So Earnhardt is looking very good here in the closing stages of this race. It's been one of the most interesting Grand National races that I have experienced because of all the accidents that we have had and because of all the what you would think of as top contenders who were eliminated from the possibility of a win very, very early. We'll be back with the final 10 laps. That's what they're going after. Will it be Earnhardt, Rudd, or somebody else? Come right back with us. Bristol International Raceway in Bristol, Tennessee, where the Valleydale 500 has 8, make that 7 1/2 laps to go. The leader is Dale Earnhardt. Second position is Ricky Rudd, and there they are on your screen. You can see the advantage that Earnhardt has as he crosses the line. This will be Dale Earnhardt's second win of 1985 if he can hold on. He won the Richmond 400 on the half-mile racetrack. Aside from that, he has had a 9th place finish at Atlanta, a 10th at Rockingham, and a 32nd at Daytona. Dale Earnhardt from Kannapolis, North Carolina, the Wrangler Chevrolet in the lead. And there is Ricky Rudd running in second position. When they come around, there will be 5 more laps to go.
Looks like the lead is about stabilized, but Earnhardt doesn't have to lap him right now. All he's got to do is stay in front of him, and I think that's what he's concerned with.
The interval continues to stretch out just a little bit. 4.5 laps to go. Earnhardt in turn number 3. And Ricky Rudd is way up by the guardrail in turn number 3. That car getting a little bit wide and losing even more ground to the leader, Dale Earnhardt.
Well, it looks, I think Rudd has gained a few car lengths, and I think he can see that he's gained a car length or 2, and he really is trying right now because he still wants to win the thing. There's 4 laps to go, 3 laps to go now as Dale Earnhardt comes down for the cross the start finish line, but he still wants to win this thing and still thinks he can.
Well, we'll see. I personally don't think he can, but we will answer that question in just a matter of moments. Earnhardt will have to pass a slower car here in the next few seconds as Jimmy Means in car number 52 pulls to the inside of the racetrack. In fact, goes even down on the apron as he is aware of the fact that the leaders are approaching him and he needs to get out of the way to make sure that he doesn't bother them in any way. The white flag will come out this time around from Harold Kinder. And there it is, the 1 more lap to go signal for Dale Earnhardt. He moves the car into turn 1. Keeps it in the middle of the racetrack through turn 2 and on to the backstretch. Ricky Rudd still several car lengths behind. There's clear sailing for Dale Earnhardt. He comes off of the 4th corner. The checkered flag is out. Dale Earnhardt wins the Valleydale 500. Second place is Ricky Rudd. And 3rd spot is going to go to Terry Labonte.
Dale Earnhardt has never in his life been as glad to see a race finish as this one.
There's the 4th place finisher, Buddy Baker. And 5th will unofficially go to Rusty Wallace, last year's Rookie of the Year. So Rudd pulls alongside Dale Earnhardt and offers his congratulations. Dale will move into the pit area and will move into victory lane for his winter interview, which we'll have in just a moment. Earnhardt led 213 of the 500 laps. Back with the winter interview in a moment. Dale Earnhardt has survived an interesting race here in Bristol, Tennessee, and has won the Valleydale 500. The Winner's Circle interview is brought to you by Goodyear. Goodyear tires and Goodyear service for more good years in your car. Here is Jack Arute.
Well, Dale Earnhardt, you had a little bit for everybody today. First of all, congratulations on a fine, fine win.
Thank you, Jackie. You know, this Wrangler bunch, they work awful hard. Richard and all the guys worked really hard on preparing this car, same car we won Richmond with, and you know, everything worked just super today except the power steering. It went out about 100 laps into the race, and I ran the last 400 laps without power steering, but the car still handled real well even though it didn't have power steering. It's just a little hard to turn. My arms kept going to sleep from, you know, tugging on it all the time, but we made out. Ricky is real tough all day, you know. At the end, we raced pretty hard. At last stop, he got new rights and we got new lefts, and I think that's what made the difference, because we had a left rear blister that was tore up because of the way I was running the car.
Did you give any input as to the choice of tires on that last pit stop?
Well, we changed rights before, so the less was the way to go, and the car usually picked up when we put on less. And you know, the tire that we had problems with, comes from where I slid it through the corner at one time, and I told Richard it didn't drive right ever since then. So, you know, I punished the tire real hard sideways down there when I got knocked sideways at one time, and you know, we just had to suffer on through until we caught that caution and changed less. I don't think I could have beat Ricky until we got that caution.
The main question, though, is would you want to do another 500 laps here without power steering?
No. No.
Well, that's the story from a very jubilant victory lane. Dale Earnhardt, Richard Childress, and the entire Wrangler crew. And right now, let's go back up topside with Bob Jenkins.
And our congratulations to everybody involved in the win. The average speed of the race, as you saw, was 81.790 miles an hour. Second place went to Ricky Rudd, and third was Terry Labonte. We'll have more from Bristol in a moment.